Hello. The creak of my chair as I do that. Many, many voices speaking today. I'm getting started earlier. This is my goal. I want to put in the time. This is one of my favorite things. So, we did a raid of Fumalina's channel yesterday, and there were some other raids happening at the same time that, it's just like really cool to see the community and connectedness that we can create digitally. I can often be skeptical of this concept, but how there is power in that, in passing it on, and that was very heartwarming. So go check out their channel, follow, subscribe. It's another day, another stream in fascist America, the United States of America. Welcome to whatever this is, an attempt at providing education, advocacy, and a little common sense in this digital wasteland. I'm Aubri Devashrayee. Welcome and namaste to the people who are here wanting to create a better world, who are here for robust discussion, good faith criticism, wanting to see the human in one another while also not being doormats, and a curse be upon those who are coming here to demean, cause harm, and exacerbate these hierarchies of human dignity. All right, today we're going to be doing a little bit of video catch-up. So there are a number of videos that I have been wanting to watch, and I have saved them for today, or I guess the natural progression of how things have happened. They are happening today. We're talking about them today. So one of these is a video by Zachap, fellow streamer, a great educator, actual leftist. One that he made on Lindsey Graham that I have been wanting to watch, that we will be watching as the funny video for today, because I'm guessing it's going to be entertaining to listen to him talk about this. There was a video that Linton shared earlier this week on what is happening in the UK with thought crimes being doubled down on. And it is a video by No Justice, and she has some really excellent content. Someone also shared this video, Elon Musk, Wokeness, and the Myth of Meritocracy. It is part of the Zachap playlist. He has a number of really great playlists on his YouTube channel that's highly recommended. And this is a follow-up from a question that came in from a new chatter, Nomar, talking about capitalists, who is actually a capitalist, who considers themselves a capitalist, who is aligned with the capitalist agenda, and who is actually part of the capitalist class. So we will make some of these distinctions, but this video is called Elon Musk, Wokeness, and the Myth of Meritocracy. There is this other video that Linton shared called I Don't Feel Bad for a Dead Rich Guy, because, yeah, I think it's highlighting the situation of that one billionaire and the crew that went down to see the Titanic, of them passing away. And so I want to watch that, where we need to be talking about how there often is a whole lot of sympathy, empathy even, that, I mean, we've kind of like had a departure from what the word empathy even means, which normally is like associated with having shared experience, of being able to have a common coming together of minds because there has been shared history of some sort, whether, I mean, it doesn't have to be together, but that there have been similar experiences had that people are communing over. But anyway, when people have sympathy for the rich, that there is this endless supply in the media and what is expected of us, rather than actually having sympathy, empathy for people in our own class. So we'll be talking about that, our own caste, because that's where we're at. I'm going to be using this word more often and talking about American class because we are in a caste system. And someone yesterday, Animated Sarah, she rated the channel. Thank you very much. Gave you a follow. And also, if you're not following, subscribing to Animated Sarah, go do that. On their channel, what she was talking about most recently with the chatters was this video. Turns out the nice guy is actually terrified. And they talk about in this video, apparently, these nice guy tropes, especially with the movie Obsession. And we were talking about this on the stream during the raid, and I'm very excited to watch this today because this is something that I was thinking about when I watched the movie Obsession, of how like these soft boys that like it doesn't matter, it shouldn't be a thing that is desired for men to be like, oh, I'll just like take whatever, like, you know, letting themselves be like walked on, or like not having a sense of confidence. Like, that's not dismantling patriarchy. Often this kind of behavior can perpetuate harmful patriarchal oppressive actions. And so it looks like in the very first frame, Ross from Friends is being talked about, and I despise the show Friends. So this will be fun to get into. And then this is a little bit of a switch up, but something that has been in discussion more recently is the Weingarten Rights for labor organizing. I do not know much about this, I'm going to be completely honest, but I do want to learn about it. And so I thought, if I don't know about this, being a little more involved with organizing, like some labor organizing, then there are many people who don't as well. So we will be learning about this, especially because like where I'm located in Utah, I don't know if these apply. So we'll be looking into that, and also providing a resource for people if they are wanting to start with organizing their workplaces or organizing their apartments, the buildings that they are in, that there are some resources. Primarily in Utah, the Utah Workers Center has some great trainings and resources for people, so we'll talk about that. We've talked about, you know, the work that they do on previous streams, but also I think it's good to repeat these things. All right. Shall we get into this video by Zachap? Also, I mean, before we get into this, we reached 150 followers. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This means a lot to me. Thank you for being willing to tune in, for being willing to listen to my rants, talk about issues that are happening in the world that I think we need to be discussing, for contributing to the discussion with your engagement. It is all greatly appreciated. Okay, let's get into this. Lindsey Graham, TLDR, because he died. Thank God. We just need more of these situations to happen. Hello, Lazy Days. Welcome. Glad to have you. Good to see you again. How are you doing today? I don't know if you're familiar with Zachap, but I went onto one of his streams before. I'm like, okay, let's clarify. How do you say your name? And that's what he said. So that's what I'm saying from now on. But it was up for debate on my stream for a while of how do you all say his username in your heads? That is how Zach says it. So a lot of us just say Zach by shorthand. All right.
Okay, so this cunt died.
Oh, whoops. Refreshing this. Oh, I hear my cat outside. Doing good. I'm familiar. Following them. Oh, amazing. Yeah, Zach does some really great education. Oh, yep, you sure are following. That is a Zach emote. Very cool. This is Juniper. Hi, Dini. I'm working on creating some emotes. Still needing to do that. I'm not what you would call the most technologically forward streamer out there. So I'm like, oh, what is this? We need to incentivize people to subscribe? Okay. I'll figure out something. Cut to months and months later. You're like, do people actually care about emotes? And I think they do a lot more than what I even expected. Which, I can see why. It's very fun. Okay. We're back. Juniper's ready to provide some criticism. I don't know if you can hear her purring.
Okay, so this cunt died. And this cunt's called Lindsey Graham. And
That is so Australian to say, but also that's very Zach to say. This cunt died. Yeah, and we're glad of it. Yeah, he's a cunt, but also he's not, especially as it's using it in queer terminology. He's not even necessarily stylish or smart enough to be a cunt.
he
He just
authorized
is in
the
manner
Iraq
and
War,
behavior.
killing millions and millions of people.
Yep.
Huge deaths towards children, and you name it. Constantly push for military escalation rather than diplomacy generally. Just throughout his entire quote-unquote regime. Promoted regime change and attacks on Iran as well. Obviously, that's the most frequent recent thing he was be pushing for. Offered effective, unconditional support for Israel's genocide of Gazans.
Yeah. Apparently he went to Israel every 2 weeks or something. I'm like, I feel really bad for the people he was interacting with, but not that bad. Mostly because we know he is in the Epstein files, that there are survivors who have said that he abused them as minors. So feeling bad for those people that he has abused wherever he has gone in the world, because it is not exclusive to children, people in the US that he has abused. Clearly, this system of abuse, of him not valuing consent, human life in general, extends to his politics. I'm going to be looking up who his main donors were, but I'm guessing they're mostly people who are in the industrial war complex. Surprise, surprise, APAC.
Just, he doesn't care. He wants to nuke them, basically. Try to push for punishing international war crime accountability, meaning that they were going to try, they were champion sanctioning international ICC officials because they put warrants out for Netanyahu and such, because they're doing a fucking genocide. He pushed for indefinite military detention without ordinary due process for the accused US citizens, telling them that they don't get a lawyer. They help restrict detainees' habeas corpus rights, or however the fuck Americans be saying that. Sponsored measures limiting the ability for Guantanamo prisoners to challenge their imprisonment in federal courts.
Yep, that is true. Okay. There we go. This is a website, Open Secrets. Glad for the work that they do. So during the 2025 to 2026 year, look how much money this fucker had. Raised 5.9 million, spent 9.91 million with campaigns, and cash on hand 11.61 million, which from what I understand, a lot of this cash on hand, this is like rollover from like other years of campaigning. Also the contributions of like the Republican Party, because once people are in power, they actually have funds to like help people get reelected. The Democratic Party also has money like this. So you can see during his reelection how much money he actually raised. Do you see that? Just an exorbitant amount of money. So he raised over $104 million and spent 95. So that's part of the cash on hand that he had. Large individual contributions, over $1 million. Small individual contributions, PAC contributions, and other. What could this other mean? That is 72% of his funding. Yeah, so we see the organizations that are the top contributors: APAC, Floorcore, Duke Energy, Bloom Energy, Boeing. Retired, which I don't even really know what that means, what the retirement industry is. Is that just like stocks? Yeah, so Republican leadership PAC, pro Israel. Yeah. His first election was in 1994. These fuckers are in power for so long. We need term limits, age limits. Will that happen? I'm very doubtful. I'm going to try to figure out what all this other funding comes from, too. If that is what I understand it to be, if it's something else.
Repeatedly attacked strong encryption. So he wanted encryption to, oh, it's too complicated for all the old folks. What even is? You have nothing to hide. Exposing journalists and such. He repeatedly pushed for a federal abortion ban, which, if you don't know, people die from the lack of access to abortion.
Yep.
If you were to look up literally any scientific institution, but I mean, even just the World Health Organization, it's just like, if you don't want people to die, you give them access to abortion. Full stop.
Yeah.
That is,
but it's not about
it's
life.
Insane.
It's what
Absolutely
people
insane.
claim.
Tried to constitutionally prohibit same-sex marriage, so obviously huge homophobe, obviously transphobe, probably everything. It's
but extremely gay from what many of us understand, what the evidence shows, that this closet case, like many in the halls of power, are just so eager to demean these populations that they should be advocating for because they are part of these populations, but are the first to actually strip away our rights. So it's these closet cases that want to enrich themselves off of dehumanizing the people that they should be advocating for, that they get into power, and they want to use the classic projection technique of being like, I couldn't possibly be gay because look, I want to take away all gay rights. That's like, that doesn't mean anything, bitch. We know who you call on the weekends. There are so many sex workers that have come out and said, like, yeah, he is queer. This is something that has been known for a very long time. It's in, like, as this website says, open secret. But he also is in the Epstein files. Documentation, survivor testimonies of him abusing people, especially minors.
Fascist conservative
And boys.
Voted against expanding background checks after Sandy Hook, so very pro guns, but into the point where they want school shootings. They don't care. I mean, they're dead. Now they can't care. But so basically pro school shooting ? This cunt used contradictory standards to reshape the Supreme Court. So they argued that election year vacancies should be left for the next president, and explicitly invited people to use his word against him, again during Obama. But then, I don't know, I guess he did some shit fuckery where I don't know who this Amy Coney Barrett is, but whatever. Helped construct the judiciary that removed federal abortion rights. So he strengthened the conservative Supreme Court that overturned Roe v. Wade.
Yep, he did that.
Or what have you.
So this is Floorcore.
So
one of the main businesses that he got donations for. Apparently, they do a lot with oil. So there we go. Mining and metals. So just extraction. That's what they're into. Life sciences, whatever the fuck that means. Chemicals. Serving the life sciences market. Okay, but life for whom? That's the real question. Leverage our global expertise to develop, optimize, and install innovative solutions for clients who provide the critical products needed to support health and wellness. Yeah, once again, for whom? Venture startups, getting FDA licensed facilities, biotech. Uh-oh. Animal health. Okay. So usually what this means is like biological weapons of sorts, also like the healthcare industry, the healthcare capitalist complex, probably experimenting on animals. It's not saying like we're for healthy animals. Yeah, pharmaceuticals, so big pharma. Yeah, we wonder why nothing changes when it comes to the health outcomes of people in America. This is why.
Accountable to that. Protected Trump after January 6th. Classic Capitol attack. Participated in pressure surrounding Georgia's 2020 vote count. So I guess this is just election bullshit. Authored a repeal proposal that would have removed millions from comprehensive insurance within regards to healthcare, I believe. Replaced ACA subsidies with smaller state block grants, eliminated Medicaid expansion funding, capped Medicaid parts. helped
Yep, I
pass the
wonder why.
2025
Maybe because his
tax benefit
donors wouldn't
law
be
that
able to make as much
redistributed
money.
resources upwards.
Oh, whoops. There we go. I don't want to keep interrupting Zach, but yeah, so this is from the industries. I'm guessing this is what some of the other is. It comes in from business, where it's not part of these large individual donations, small individual donations, which, like, to be clear, the small individual donations that I was just looking at, um, this is like, yeah, less than $200. This is from constituents. Do we see, like, this is the smallest category. His constituents make up less than 1% of his financing, which goes to show who really controls politicians, who really controls the country. And even less than that, that is second only to him financing himself. Ugh, yikes. Okay, so the industries, finance, insurance, real estate, other. Yeah, it would be great to know what this other means. Why is that? What is that? Retirement, nonprofit foundations. We know that nonprofits are called the shadow state for a reason. Civil servant, public employee. What? From churches. I need to look up more of what this retirement stuff is. If it's just like people on the stock market with stock portfolios or like retirement centers to make it so that like the people on top who are making like exorbitant amounts of money for your retirement centers and senior living facilities, perhaps they make tons of money, but of course the care that is offered at these places are just horrible. Some single issue people, miscellaneous business. This is also vague, and that's intentional. The smallest is labor. Yeah. He doesn't really seem like you'd be a union friendly chap. Defense. I'm honestly surprised defense is not larger unless this is included in other, but it just is not categorized overtly as defense with all of these workarounds.
Whatever the fuck that means. In 2017, I guess it was permanent tax cuts and pushed people to work longer before receiving Social Security. So he proposed in 2011 for retiring at age 70. Nothing less. So, yep. I mean, hey, he died working at 71, so you work till you die, I guess, right? Opposed major climate investment while supporting fossil fuel expansion. I mean, shit. I didn't need to even tell you that. But that's what the cunt did. Something climate, something didn't care. So you got militarism, privatized healthcare, fucking chud tax policy, surveillance powers, and then like cultural restrictions within regards to sexuality, reproduction, identity.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's this guy. And yeah, well, I don't know. Just thought I'd make a TLDR because why not? Fuck it.
Thanks, Zach. Ding dong, the bitch is dead. Witch, old bitch, the wicked bitch. It doesn't work, the wordplay, when I insert bitch. Witch, old witch, the wicked witch. Hi. Juniper singing too. Okay. What does retirement industry donations mean to politicians? That's probably like a weird way of saying that, but retired background. Which industry contributes the most to federal candidates and political committees? Defense contractors, oil companies, lawyers, pharmaceuticals. The top industry isn't really in industry at all, but individuals who list their occupation as retired in federal documents. Okay, so capitalists, boomers, surprise, surprise, people with generational wealth. Retired individuals made over $190 million in political contributions during the 2014 election cycle, with 53% going to Republicans and 46% going to Democrats. Okay. Yeah, 401k industry owns Congress. Yep. There they are, the fuckers that pull up the ladder behind them. And they're burning the world down with it. I mean, quite literally, as we were talking about yesterday, we have been. Like, the world is on fire because of global warming. Like, I saw something of, like, within the past week, there were over 10,000 deaths across the globe because of global warming and excessive heat. Hey, there you go. Yeah, 5 months before Congress faced a near catastrophic standoff over the debt ceiling, with Republicans demanding restrictions to food and Medicaid programs to rein in spending. Yeah, because guess what? Who funds their campaigns? A bill that raised the cost of private retirement savings accounts to $282 billion per year was quietly signed into law. Yeah, all of this underhand bullshit. This was in 2024, too. Anyway. So, speaking of no justice, who is featured here in one of my recommended videos, let's watch this video that Linton shared the other day. This policy should terrify you. The ruling class, the people who are capitalists, the people who are in charge, the politicians, the billionaires, people within the 1%, this is what they are doing across the globe. It is not exclusive to the UK, it's not exclusive to the US, where there are these actions ramping up to stop any sort of free thinking. I mean, this has been a thing under capitalism, global capitalism, but it is happening especially now as there is more momentum with movements that are anti-genocide, that are pro-human, pro-worker especially. They are not wanting to hear it from us because the ruling class views our resistance and advocating for our humanity as being insolent children rather than actually standing up for human beings, which is like a noble cause. Like, what? And when I mean noble, not by like nobility and title. Juniper. Just like climbing in the keyboard drawer. But like noble as in like good intentions, that like, it should be something we want to advocate for, is for our fellow person, fellow human being. That shouldn't be a radical thing, and yet here we are. Okay, I should probably refresh this as well. It does that weird like content not found thing when I try to load something that's been up for more than a day.
Bacrera over at The Guardian, which is that the government is potentially going to prescribe the IRGC, that is the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, as something akin to a terrorist organization. This is due to new legislation that would have to go through Parliament, so Parliament will have to approve this at some point in the future to essentially make supporting the IRGC punishable by what could be up to 14 years in prison under current prescription laws, which is quite something. It's quite something. Now, it's worth pointing out that this is not just the only piece of legislation that's being put through that is going to be somewhat stifling of free speech and opposition to government policy. Because this combines with the state threats bill that they're also putting through, which doesn't just criminalize people doing things and saying things in support of prescribed terrorist groups. It nebulously defines state threats and therefore can pin people
She's smelling
on
my
being aligned
chapstick.
with those quote-unquote state threats, regardless of prescription or regardless of the affirmative statements of being in support of those institutions overall, right? Paul Holden, great journalist.
I'm laughing at Juniper, not this horrific news. Hello, Linton. Welcome. We are going to finish the video that you shared earlier this week. This video by No Justice on what's happening in the UK with this bill saying that any sort of speech that is for the IRGC, that will be criminal. Thought crimes, they continue. What do you think, Bug? She's like, okay, it passes. Now I'll rub my face on it. Thanks. Thanks for inspecting. We call her Inspector Tiny sometimes because she has to be on quality control wherever we're doing things. Just to check out the projects. Make sure that things are up to par.
Friend of the show, has been doing a lot of work on how draconian this kind of stuff is. And as he points out, the State Threats Bill gives the Home Secretary nearly untrammeled power to designate any group working to advance a, quote, foreign state threat. They are a threat if they pursue any objective that is inimical to the interests of the UK. Anyone who supports a designated group, like endorsing it or sharing its messages online, faces 14 years in prison. This is so broadly written that it invites, almost guarantees, abuse. In the context of a potential far-right government, it is madness.
Okay. I'm sorry for laughing. This is a serious matter, but just Juniper is making me laugh. How are things with you, Linton? I mean, amidst all the bullshit.
Such draconian legislation on the books. Now, Paul is absolutely right. This, as has been pointed out in chat, panopticon shit is awful when you think about who is potentially coming down the line. Both the Tories and Reform are open in terms of their authoritarianism, are open in terms
anything
of being
anti-capitalist could fall under that
to
definition.
Be able to
demonize
and imprison anyone who disagrees with government policy. But
yeah, it's like what you were saying in a previous stream where like it's up to one politician or one appointee, I think, from what you were saying before, that is essentially deciding all of this. And that's just up to their own personal whims and how dangerous that fucking is. But yeah, it's like how, like in the US, that we're seeing now this language that they're using of like anti-tech extremists, when it's just people who don't want data centers built in their backyard, like their homes to be taken, their water to be completely just to be extremely dirty, that they don't have clean drinking water, that it's polluting the land. It's like, yeah, we're so extreme for like wanting human dignity, but you know, this is really an indication of late stage capitalism where it's like they aren't even trying to pretend anymore, like how there has been with like some neoliberal fascism. Not to say that there aren't people who do this still, which is why we should always be suspicious of politicians and people in the ruling class, like with any of their intentions. But yeah, where like it's now, especially, they're like, okay, we realize we have a limited amount of time of like even the earth lasting, that we have to really step on the gas to make sure that we can bulldoze people without any sort of consequences. Doing okay despite these freaks. Yeah, freaks in the worst way possible.
I think that trying to fearmonger about this, and correctly fearmonger, you should be fearful of this.
Couldn't that include
based
BDS?
on what a future government might do, is missing the wood for the trees. This current government are the scary ones. They are all so scary. It's not just a potential bait knockoff Farage that you should be scared of when it comes to legislation like this. You should be scared of Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, and potentially Andy Burnham as well, if he's keeping Mahmood on as Home Secretary, or if he doesn't want to rescind bills like this, because we've seen now they're happy to prescribe the IRGC, like a foreign government's military, which is...
Yeah, it's like, are we going for fascist diet or fascist extreme? Because it's all fascist, so which is just capitalist, which is also colonial in nature, because all of these things are related. There was a new exemption for data centers too. They can undermine local governments in planning data centers if they get clearance from national government. Oh my god. Yeah, see, like, all of this is happening around the world. We really have an interconnected struggle and fight with global capitalism and actually finding unity, our collective liberation with global working class resistance. But it's like they have so much power, and especially now that like many of them are dying in office, like this isn't exclusive to the US either, that they are like, oh, we have to do everything we can. And it's like, how can you... I know this is a dumb question, but like, how can you be so callous? Like, how do you even get to a point, which I know it's class, I know it's all of these forms of supremacy and discrimination and condition, like internalizing of these systems, but like, how do you even get to that point though? Of like having to break down people's humanity, of like, these people are so broken in their thoughts of like, well, then what do they think about themselves? Like, they're so self-hating that like it's not enough to just be in their own positions. They have to tear down the entire planet and the people in it. They got the TV, we got the truth. They own the judges, we got the proof. Yes. That's the Guillotine song by The Coup. That really is an amazing song. I love that. I have said before, but I'm like, I think that's how, maybe we'll show it again. I've shown it before on Culture Corner. Maybe I'll show it again tomorrow. But I'm like, that's how Wicked should have ended. That actually would have led to a very important ending, is if they got rid of the wizard. Not just like, oh, you can leave, but like guillotine him. That seems like a fitting end for his crimes. Instead of just being like, oh, I think people can change, or like, you don't know what you're doing. It's like, no, he knew what he was doing. Like, don't just let him off like that. He can't just leave of like, oh, we can't be like them, so cruel. Like, no, how about we ensure that like he doesn't inflict this kind of harm wherever the fuck he goes, you know?
Actually means disagreeing with the government on aspects of foreign policy could mean you get sent to prison. This is so Trumpian, I do not know quite how to describe it in any other fashion. The Trump administration have used designating people as threats to the state, have used designation of people as terrorists with no justification, again, purely at the whim of the Home Secretary to designate it via statutory instrument. Rather than going through Parliament, the Home Secretary can just designate you an enemy of the state without any oversight whatsoever.
Yeah, especially if you are part of any marginalized population. But even then, if you are speaking out for Palestinian liberation, just talking about the humanity of Palestinians, being against genocides in the world at large, not just in Palestine, being trans, being queer, you know, it's like being a person of color. It's like, this is what we have to keep talking about, as it is a continuation of these colonial projects and non-consensual domination that is about ethnic cleansing. It is about having power over people. It is not about actually having a sense of democracy. They want us to have that delusion. And this is why many people are very disillusioned by the concept of electoralism, that like unfortunately these fuckers who get into power through elected office affect our material conditions, but largely how they even get into power in the first place, as we were looking at all of the like donations from Lindsey Graham, it's because of businesses, it's because of capital. It's not because of with the donations that they get. It's not because of people coming together and being like, oh, we want to vote for this person because we believe in them. It's because they see ads and they're like, yeah, this is what we are told to believe, so that's what we will believe. And then with all of these fascists controlling media outlets and what gets seen and what doesn't, controlling the algorithms, it just is like so insane, the time that we are living in. But sadly, it is a part of a pattern of behavior.
Especially given that even if it did go to Parliament, Parliament is sovereign, most governments have a majority. As long as MPs get whipped by the leader, you personally or your group can just be deemed an enemy of the state at the will of the Home Secretary, which is absolutely terrifying, is what the Trump administration is doing, you know? They defined narco-terrorists as enemies of the state, and therefore the American
just
government
fishermen
has been blowing
boats.
up Venezuelan fishermen for the last, year at this point.
Yeah,
The
it's evil.
narco-terrorists just have to die because they're enemies of the state. No due process, no nothing, so they get executed by the American government. It was this nebulous idea of a state using some old on-the-book law that was invoked by the Trump administration, which was used to subvert due process to send Venezuelan men to an El Salvadorian torture gulag. That's what prescription can do. If you're designated an enemy of the state, a bunch of your rights just immediately disappear. And that's what Shabana Mahmood, as Home Secretary, will be able to do with this kind of legislation. We've all seen NSPM 7. We've all seen the way in which the Trump administration have just created a nebulous set of values that are against America and makes you a state threat. That's what this bill will allow the Home Secretary to do, purely on grounds of statutory...
That is a really great way of saying that. Created a nebulous set of values that determine if you're a threat.
And it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And again, I'm not saying the IRGC are good people. Clearly they are not. Clearly the way that they act internally in Iran is awful, and no one should support that if you believe in liberal democracy. Clearly that you shouldn't, right? But when it comes to aspects of foreign policy, things get a lot murkier. When you perceive groups as pursuing an objective that is inimical to the interests of the United Kingdom, that essentially reads as oppose the current government's view on foreign policy. Our government fully in support of America and Israel's war on Iran. They are allowing America to use our bases with which to facilitate that invasion, that illegal UN Charter violating invasion of Iran, right? Our government's current foreign policy position is to support this illegal war. Maybe not join it directly, but they are certainly supporting it. We're hardly neutral on this issue. We are taking sides, and we have supported the Americans and the Israelis, in the same way that we supported the Israelis in their genocide in Gaza by flying spy flights from RAF Akrotiri.
Okay, this was 3 days ago. I was wondering when this came out. I wanted to see the comments real quick. We are a post-liberal country, and the press is not scrutinizing it at all. Yeah, because guess what? It is the people in the ruling class who own these publications, who own these media outlets, have a vested interest in continuing what they are doing in other ways. They're also invested in the industrial war complex. They also are invested in the global extraction that is deeply colonial and genocide that accompanies this extraction. That's like, it's all connected.
Be prescribed as a terrorist organization just on its own, right? Supporting it is up to
like if we're calling the IRGC a terrorist organization, it's like, so I mean, we can say with confidence the IDF, the American military, I think that these could both be categorized as terrorist organizations. But will that happen? No, because it is all about power. It is all about colonial power, especially with this global white supremacy that they are trying to impose on the world that like exists in many ways with infrastructure and global capitalism, this continuation of colonization, but also this Islamophobia that exists, that is what is happening in Palestine, it is happening in Iran, that it's like this cannot be separated. Hello, Bunso. Welcome. We're live. I got started a little bit earlier today. This is the goal. Streaming is one of my favorite things. So thank you all for being here and for listening to what I rant about. How are you doing? Information industry interlinked with infantry, instrumentalize identity, implant ignorance instantly. Holy shit. Where is that from? Also, the alliteration there? That's. Wow. Is this low key? I'm doing all right. You know, trying to just keep moving forward with all of the bullshit happening. You know, like, we can't let this go unnoticed, like what that commenter was saying on this video. It's all about making sure we keep up the pressure. This is why they are starting to see the tide change, at least what they're saying publicly with many politicians, people in the ruling class, of people understanding that the majority of the world sees Israel's crimes with the genocide of Palestinians. And like, we need to continue this with highlighting what the people of Sudan are experiencing in the Congo, the people of Indonesia, what they're experiencing with global warming, especially that it's like there are people who are intentionally viewed as an obstacle to this global domination that we have to be speaking out about. Decided to start a healthcare education and clean water centered group called the Followers of the Apocalypse. I love that. Yeah. I think, like, growing up, it used to be more of a thing, like, at least within, like, Republican circles, of, like, people just need to learn how to do things. And that's different than, like, people actually having the tools they need to survive. And I think, like, making that distinction has been really important in, like, me even understanding how we try to protect ourselves and how we save ourselves from what is going on. From Loki's Fire in the Booth Part 2. He does that with every letter of the alphabet. Are you kidding me? Okay, we're gonna have to watch that on Culture Corner sometime. You know, the world can be full of despair. It can induce a lot of despair, depression, anxiety, this existential terror that is very real, that is especially for people who experience marginalization and intersections of marginalization. But like, the incredible art that people are capable of, like how, like, we all are capable of such amazing things. Like, I believe that. I think that is cheesy. It sounds cheesy, but I also believe that. Like, we all are capable of so much, accomplishing so much. It's a matter of opportunity and resources and, like, actually not being kept away from what we can accomplish. It starts with training and finding the core leaders. Free the people. Yeah. Just have to read one book. Where There Are No Doctors. Ooh, I love that. I should read that. Open source group. That's amazing. Yeah, the more that we can all be well-rounded and like survival tactics, the better, honestly. A wonderful world is waiting while weapons wage war. We're weeping, who's winning? We're wishing, well, while wicked wizards' webs are weaving. They whip us till we're wheezing. Our words of wisdom won't weaken. Witness these witless wallies waffling with their weekend. Their wording is Wikipedia, virtually void of vitals, verses, visceral, vintage, but vivid videos going viral. Do you see my mouth? My mouth's open. Wow. Okay. We are gonna have to watch that. If you happen to have a link at all, I mean, I can also look this up on my own, but incredible, where it's like people should not be pushed to the limits of being forced to create art that comes from such struggle and suffering, but like the way that people are forced to alchemize that experience into like beauty, into strength, into resistance is just so inspiring. Fire in the booth. Okay, we're gonna have to watch this tomorrow. You're gonna get an education for medical specialization. And you have a great tutor. That's awesome. Wow. You give me hope. Thank you all. This is what we need to do. Be creating art, be speaking out, be planning, actually creating these systems, ways that we can be surviving outside so that we are not reliant on the capitalist class for everything. That is radical.
Before you even get to the idea of pursuing objectives inimical to the interests of the UK, the interest of the UK being policy, current government foreign policy, right? That's what the interest of the UK means in this. It's what the current government believes is the correct foreign policy prescription, you know? I say something like, it is a moral imperative for Iran to beat Israel and the United States in this war, because it is, am I now a terrorist, chap? Presuming this prescription goes through Parliament. Am I now a terrorist for thinking that, actually, for the good of the UN Charter, Iran must win this war? Because that is my belief.
This. Become a state threat, everyone. Yep. It's like, if you are not viewed as threatening to the system, like, we aren't doing enough. You know? It's like, honestly, with like even like experiencing, like, I know this isn't as related, well, I guess it kind of is, of like being pushed out of my job working for the government, of like speaking out against like data suppression and like the erasing of people from marginalized communities from data and like from any sort of content, just being asked to do whatever management said. That it's like, I mean, it's not without consequence, which is what stops people of like still experiencing the consequences of like trying to find a job, a full-time job and stuff. But also, like, I would rather, I, and this is gonna sound dramatic, but I mean it, I would rather die, like, before, like, shuffling off this mortal coil, if we're talking in Shakespearean terms, I would rather know that, like, tried standing up for things that were ethical and were supporting people's humanity. This doesn't mean that I'm perfect at it or am like the perfect advocate, because I don't think anybody is, or that I don't make mistakes. But also, like, there's a reason why, like, when we become too outspoken or are like garnering enough support behind certain movements, that like the system views us as threatening. And like that means you are taking on the oppressive, not only like actions, but the machine itself, which is like a bitch, you know, and not in like a fierce way, not being a bitch in a fierce way, but also just, yeah, like this is what it takes.
I don't support
Like,
the IRGC
we should
as an
want to
institution in Iran.
feel like
But do I
we
believe
have
that
been
the
on the
state
right
of
side of
Iran,
history.
of which their current sovereign military is the IRGC, should beat Israel and the United States? Because otherwise it creates precedent on the world that you can engage in UN Charter violations and there are no repercussions, that you can invade a sovereign country with no casus belli, and you can do it fully in flagrant violation of the UN Charter, no mandate, no nothing, no UN Security Council resolution justifying your invasion, you know? If you can do those things and there are no repercussions, everyone will do it. Russia will continue to do it in Ukraine. China will do it elsewhere, You know, other countries around the world, more belligerent countries, will be able to do these things too. America will do it even more flagrantly. They've already done many times, for example, in Iran or in Grenada or whatever it might be, right? All of these great powers, which we're currently in a world of great power politics, will feel emboldened to break the UN Charter if Iran loses. Does that mean I support the IRGC? No. Does it mean I oppose this current government's foreign policy prescriptions on how we treat Iran and the IRGC? Yeah, it does. Their position is to support America and Israel's invasion in flagrant violation of the UN Charter. And that is what I support here. But me basically supporting the UN Charter could land me 14 years in prison, chat, should this prescription go through. So how do commentators like myself cover the Iran war objectively? This is exactly the chilling effect that prescriptions like this will create. It'll be impossible to report on this objectively without taking the Atlanticist viewpoint, because every single potential government in this country is
reporting individual free speech.
Totally cucked out to the United States. They're totally hell for leather for Atlanticism as a political prescription. And then, if that's the case, if the British state is so intertwined with the United States that our foreign policy goals are the same, foreign state threats that have an objective that is inimical to the interests of the UK suddenly becomes inimical to the United States, which then of course means inimical to Israel. It's deliberately meant to make sure that you can't criticize the government on foreign policy.
The colonizers sticking together.
He's the adult in the room, that you have to vote Labour to stop the authoritarian far-right government of Kemi Badenoch or Nigel Farage. And I'm like, the authoritarian government is already here. Shabana Mahmoud's panopticon is already here. The state threats bill is being pushed through by a quote-unquote former human rights lawyer. The prescription of Palestine action put through by a former human rights lawyer who defended other groups on those same grounds when they did the same things as Palestine action with regards to the war in Iraq. Don't like British foreign policy? Go to prison. If the IRGC is a terrorist force, by what possible logic is the...
go to prison where you have no rights, where you will be used for your slave labor, and the politicians and the people who put them there, their capitalist cronies, will all benefit from people being in prison.
Force not. Well, exactly, right? If we're going to prescribe foreign militaries for engaging in actions that our country disagrees with, why not prescribe US Air Force? Why not prescribe the IDF? Again, I'm not going to try and sit here and back for the actions of the IRGC internally within Iran. Clearly, I'm not. They do awful things. Do you want to consider how much worse the things the IDF does to Palestinians? Do you want to consider it's worse that the US Army and Air Force have done all across the world for the last half of a century?
Yeah.
Again, like Grenada, Cuba, Nicaragua. I mean, that's the thing, Stephen, is that Labour will use all of this stuff to go, well, we've created this nightmare panopticon authoritarian
Vietnam,
surveillance.
Venezuela.
You have to vote for us, because if you don't, the insane authoritarian system we've created will be in the hands of Reform UK. You don't want that, do you? I don't want it from anybody, thanks, actually. I would quite like a government that doesn't create an authoritarian panopticon surveillance state. And it's worth pointing out, by the way, that New Labour were just the same as this. New Labour were the ones in 90-day detention. Although at that time, the Tories opposed it. There was a Tory opposition who opposed this creation of authoritarian legislation. And now, because the Tories are just as bought and paid for by American interests, basically, and who don't have any principles at all, they believe in the same shit as Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmoud do on these kind of things. There's no opposition at all. There's no opposition at all. And the Liberal Democrats, supposedly the bastions of liberalism in this country, of anti-authoritarian politics, they're all hell for leather. They were the ones pushing for the government to do this prescription. There's no liberalism left in this country. We're a post-liberal country at this point.
Yeah, neo-fascist liberalism.
I don't believe in liberal statecraft and liberal values.
Neoliberal fascism, I guess,
social
same thing.
Policy in terms of personal freedom. The only party, and I mean the only party that you can vote for in England that actually takes personal liberty seriously is the Green Party. It's the only one left. It's the only one left. And again, they won't prescribe the IDF because when it comes to interests that diverge from the UK. Again, broadly, our interests are in having a Western outpost in the Middle East as far as the Atlanticists are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
The IDF can do whatever they want. They can murder as many children as they want. They can be a settler colonial as they want. They can steal as much Palestinian land as they want. Because as far as they're doing it in the interests of quote-unquote the West, whatever the fuck that is,
Mm-hmm.
as far as our politicians are concerned, they can do no wrong. It's all about
Yeah,
state interest.
because they're acting in a manner. Oh, I don't want to end on that frame. Sorry. They're doing it in a manner that has been learned by these larger colonial powers of the UK and the US. And to be clear, like the reason why like people fall in line with whatever the US is doing is because of imperialism, is because of this global capitalism. But we are in the fall of empire. And you know, like sadly, with the fall of empire, that means there is a lot of violence, unnecessary violence, especially with people who are in the working class across the globe. But it also means that there is opportunity. There's opportunity to be building things outside of this system, like what you were talking about, Aliana, of like actually having community support where we protect ourselves, we support each other, we save ourselves. And we can't just be reliant on the people who are in elected office to somehow see the light, or that they will not be corrupted, or that we have to constantly be harassing them. I mean, not even harassing them, but just like begging them to do the right thing, which is just stand up for their constituents. That it's like, it has to be more than that. Also, can I just say, her makeup looks incredible, but like the purple, like juxtaposed with her complexion is just lovely.
Rights, adherence
Purple
to
walls.
international law, the basic of morality goes out the window when it comes to the interests of what the American empire wants. Simple as that. It's as simple as that. They prescribe the Green Party as terrorists. I do not speak. For if I speak, there will be big trouble. Big trouble. Even if they don't prescribe the Green Party as terrorists, they'll still use language such as America and Israel are wrong for this war, and they should lose it to protect the UN Charter, will mean that every other political party will gang up on Zach Polanski as if he's somehow supportive of state threats based upon the nebulous description as such in the state threats bill, i.e., you hate Britain because you don't support America and Israel in their illegal wars, because that's Britain's interests, and opposing those interests is illegal under this bill that we've created. Like, even if they don't want to actually impose legal consequences on Zach Polanski and the Green Party, us upholding international law and the UN Charter as a party that believes in these things, because we're the only party left that seems to care, will make us persona non grata in the political space. And we have to be sure that we are explaining to voters why we say what we do and why we believe what we believe. Otherwise, we will allow Shabana Mahmood and Suella Braverman and Chris Philp to be the ones to decide for us what our positions are and what the public should think about them. The purser in chat says, to be honest, as much as I want to stay here, I've been increasingly considering the fact that I should move to Ireland for my own sanity and safety as time goes on. I'm thinking the very same thing, although I'll probably move to Greece rather than Ireland because I like the warm weather. But we have a state that's absolutely threatening our civil liberties. We have a government that basically wants to demonize trans people and remove them from polite society. As far as the economy is going, our government's insane approach to the economy in terms of migration means that in 20 years' time, we will literally be a retirement home with so few working people, the economy collapses. And already we have a political class that are entirely beholden to the older generation instead of young people. Young people in this country, you should leave. You should leave if you can. This country is only getting worse, not better. You've been watching a clip from one of my live streams. I do them 5 days a week. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and ring the bell down below to be ensured that you get notified whenever I post
That's
new
how I
videos,
feel.
and indeed when I go live as well. If you want to support the channel in a more long-term fashion, you can hit the join button down below to become a member. It's 99p and cheaper than a can of Red Stripe. And if you want to become a long-term supporter, you can also do so on Patreon. That's patreon.com/NoJusticeMTG. I'll see you on the next one.
Okay. Yeah, the videos that were recommended talking about settler violence, talking about ICE violence, this is the same thing. Just because ICE is not trying to take people's land, it's like, when will this happen? I'm not. I am not confident that this will not start to happen, or that it does in many ways. I guess we can say it like that with evictions of people going bankrupt because of not being able to pay mortgages because of being forced out of the workplace. Okay. So I think I was a little bit ambitious. I was a little bit ambitious once again with what I had planned, even with starting earlier. Because I do want to get to some things. I did want to watch this video that you shared, Linton. I don't feel bad for a dead rich guy. And then there was this video that Animated Sarah recommended that they had been watching, that she and her chat had been watching for their stream, about the nice guy that I am very interested in. If we do not get around to it, maybe we will save it for tomorrow. But I did want to get to Weingarten Rights, what this means for labor organizing. Would you say like Weingarten? That would be like the German pronunciation. The theft has already happened, really. Yep, they're just there to uphold that theft. Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. Okay. I don't feel bad for a dead rich guy. Nope.
Make engineering sense to me.
So like, as we were talking about a couple of streams ago, how like there should be this endless sympathy for capitalists, people who are in the 1%, for what they are experiencing, how we're expected to care about what happens to billionaires, of like when they get married, the children they have, if they experience any sort of hardship, of like, oh, that's so sad for you. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, how about we hear less about you? Like, I have talked about like the whole like Taylor Swift wedding, of like, I don't give a fuck, this is so annoying, and I've gone actively out of my way to not find out things. And because of the world that we are living in and her being part of the 1%, that there is just an infinite well of information being spewed about it, that I'm just like, I don't care. But people being like, oh, they donated so much money to this, aren't they so charitable? But they also shut down more of Manhattan than what even Trump did. That's like, hello? All billionaires are fascist. That's just the truth. I grew up loving Beyonce. That doesn't mean that I can't say that, like, oh, you're fascist. You and your husband, your family, that, like, you have these empires and it is built off of the backs of working people. It doesn't mean you don't have a modicum of talent. I mean, I think Beyonce is more talented than Jay-Z, but it also means that like people who are talented, especially like if um they are the part of the celebrity class, of like, oh, we think they're beautiful and like love the art that they create. It's fascism in order to like pull the wool over our eyes and not pay attention to them even being in power in the first place. Of like, maybe they shouldn't have this much stardom, maybe they shouldn't have this much wealth, but we will continue to talk about like, oh, isn't it cute that they do this, isn't it cute that they have kids? Of like, people in the working class have kids all the time. Like, what are we talking about? Anyway.
At some point, safety just is pure waste.
Oh, damn. Here we go.
lot of rules out there that didn't make engineering sense to me. At some point, safety just is pure waste. I think I can do this just as safely.
In his
by
defense,
breaking
he
the rules.
did take out a few more billionaires with him.
Thank God for billionaires. I mean, what would we do as a society without them? These powerful men and women rose to the top 1% through hard work and dedication. And as a result, they've earned the right to control our lives and not pay taxes. Or other privileges, like buying an entire neighborhood or going into space for a few minutes. But every now and then you get some rich guy whose ego is so inflated that they genuinely try to compete with the laws of common sense. See, scamming the public out of their wealth isn't enough, and now he thinks he can scam other rich folks.
Anything when you're
The
trying-
animation, this art style, excellent, incredible.
something outside the box. People inside the box think you're nuts.
Meet OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush. And while technically he's not a billionaire, he still followed the rich man scammer playbook. You're gonna keep hearing me refer to these folks as scammers because, well, they're scammers. A bunch of cheap-ass penny-pinching parasites. Being a billionaire is the ultimate form of scammer. Your entire wealth is based on exploitation, wage theft, tax loopholes, and convincing the public that hoarding unimaginable amounts of money somehow makes you a fucking genius. Well, this genius in question didn't score high on his exam. In fact, he flunked. Out of life. This happy camper had the genius idea of visiting the Titanic
Out of
while
life.
completely ignoring industry
That delivery.
regulations.
Once the pressure vessel is, you're certain it's not going to collapse on everybody, everything else can fail. Your thrusters can go, your lights can go, you're still going to be safe.
Unless you've been living under a rock at the bottom of the ocean, in that case you've probably met Stockton in person, you already know what happened. The mission was a complete
Amazing.
failure, with Stockton
This came
and
out
the
2
rest of the
days
crew
ago.
dying as a result of the Titan submersible violently imploding. OceanGate immediately shut down afterwards, and the deep sea exploration community
The
gave
virus. Oh no. I don't know if I doubt it though. Like if you all grew up during that time of like if your like home computer, your family computer got a virus, oh shit. Seeing that kind of stuff where it just like keeps happening and happening, all those windows, nightmare.
expensive I told you so in history. Here we are 3 years later, and you can't help but think about how preventable this whole mess was. I mean, the sub was controlled by a Logitech controller, for fuck's sake. Yeah, we can continue to make jokes about it all day, but what happened to them is part of a pattern that all these rich folks follow. And they're so consumed by wealth and ego that they legitimately believe that they're invincible. We already know that's nothing new. Rich folks
It pains me to see the billionaire class dance. I mean, especially the white supremacists. There really is no rhythm in those bones. No soul. Clearly, we already know this by looking in their shark eyes, which, you know, is doing a disservice to sharks. Sharks are not as harmful as what billionaires are. I'm scared of sharks, but not nearly as scared of them as billionaires. It's so embarrassing. They're such fucking losers that they have to be that rich in order to get any sort of attention. Like, what? What was that? Or like Trump dancing. It's so
always acted like this.
gross.
But this modern, obnoxious version of it that every single one of these scumbags has tried to emulate is one popularized by none other than Silicon Valley.
Well, you have to innovate.
See?
Innovation.
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 Isn't it amazing how when they get more money, all of a sudden their hair grows back? What happened? What happened? What about them having clothes that fit a little better? Like their hairlines improve greatly. It's not like they even have great sense of style at all, like even with the money. It just is like just absolutely tasteless. Elon genuinely acts like a sim when you have the evil trait equipped. Oh, it's funny because it's so true. And they just have to take a minute to hit a cartoonishly evil pose every so often. Yeah. Even like the way where he like the like pictures of him where he's like, it's like you aren't even trying to not look evil. But also you're so embarrassing. Like as being evil, like I imagine, like I don't believe in like the devil. I do believe in like people acting in evil ways. I would imagine like the devil would be hot, you know, of I would imagine Satan would be the best dancer of like, ooh, like come over here, like seducing people, but like evil looks so ugly. I know my god is half devil.
What makes a hyper-capitalist, ego-driven shithole like Silicon Valley so insufferable
I've
is
learned
the
that
fact that it
through
took all these
channelings and
scammers
research.
and gave
I
them
know
a
I am becoming more of like like getting in tune more with like spirituality of like that being like and like energy of that existing outside of us, of like the energy that you put out in the world and like what you give like and what you receive and stuff. And so also that is like a way to decolonize. Have you? May I recommend a book? Yes, that would be great. I think I also, like with decolonizing my own mind, tapping into Hedra identity, I think I'm trying to embrace more of like my intuition and not just like push some things aside, because I think I had a lot of like Mormon trauma associated with it, when in actuality, like there can be like certain things you are like attuned to outside of like religion, of just like being able to like get a read on people, of like sometimes I feel like this is a Scorpio thing for me to say, of like being like a human lie detector. Like I feel like I can pick up on bullshit pretty easily. I say that and like you watch, like I'm proven way wrong sometime in the near future. It's called the Kabbalon. Kabbalion? It's ancient Egyptian philosophy. The dude went to Egypt to teach, but no one knows where. Interesting. Kabbalion. Okay, sorry, thank you. I'm like trying to like look in the get larger text for myself. Kabbalion. My ignorant ass. Okay, thank you very much.
It takes
Like,
your
I do think
average
people have like a
flavorless,
gift of
white bread personality
intuition.
dude who just happened to become very wealthy through extreme exploitation and privilege, and repackages them as some sort of visionary or
You buy copies to hand out?
The
That's
media then
cool.
goes and
I
creates
mean,
a
you don't have to
mythology
do
around
that.
these
That's
folks
very
that acts
nice
as
of
a
you, though.
shield. You get these influencers, magazines, podcasts, biopics.
Why is it that they all have to wear black turtlenecks? That was at least better taste somewhat than what a lot of these people wear.
Platform to maintain that illusion, and then you top all
I don't
that
know where
off
that
with the
came
fans
from,
of these
though.
folks themselves
I
that
mean, like
glaze them
Steve
as if they're
Jobs, but like
superheroes.
why?
It works so well because you end up with
Maybe they
millions
just look
of
like
working class
art.
folks, you know, the very people getting scammed by these parasites, defending
art
them at every
curators?
turn because they've been sold the lie that
Fascists
if they
wear
work
black.
hard
I
enough
mean,
and think outside
they
the box, then they too can own a sweatshop in an exploited nation.
Just work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in, 80
Yeah,
hour,
the black
80 to
shirts.
100 hour weeks every week.
You keep smelling your own farts, eventually you're not going to notice when you actually end up shitting
Canadian
yourself.
black
Case in point
shirts,
being
that's
Mermaid
true.
Man over here. But Stockton was just one man with an ego. I mean, surely more won't let their hubris override common sense, right? Right?
Yeah, Nazis wearing brown,
these days
yeah,
I'll
and
learn.
red. They also
Social
wearing like
Security
black
is
and red.
the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time.
Elon Musk.
It's like he couldn't even say that without looking evil. It's the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. With like the filler in his cheekbones. This is not to make fun of people with filler, but just him. Of like the work they get done is so bad too.
Working, of course, with President Donald Trump to find waste in federal government agencies, and that includes the Social Security Administration.
We see a future where intelligence is a utility like electricity or...
We also see a lot of fascists wear suits. This is not exclusive, and that obviously is like a sweeping generalization, but... And even beyond this, of like how I mentioned in a previous stream, how like once people get to a certain level of wealth where they class flex and dress like little boys. When I was a fashion, I didn't know that. How did, if you don't mind me asking, how did you like deprogram yourself from all of that? Hello, Turd Bomb. Welcome. Leaving religion, I especially hate suits. I know. Which, like, there are many people that can wear suits, but it is definitely, like, a petite bourgeois signal of, like, being, like, a white-collar person. Yeah. Of being a fed.
Water, and people buy it from us on a meter.
Our accidental drilling spill again in the Gulf is a tragedy that should have never happened. And to all those affected, I want to say, we are deeply sorry.
Look, call me insensitive if you want, but I don't know. Maybe it's okay to
wear
laugh
suits
when
to
all
school.
these
Yeah, so I mean, like, kids not having a choice, but it being part of, like, this larger, like, how we were talking about yesterday of, like, the history of Turtle Island, of seeing Native kids where they're in traditional dress, that they have to be forced to, like, wear a suit in these residential schools, of, like, oh, we are going to force people to conform. There is no sense of individuality. You cannot have self-expression. That's, like, in trying to impose all of this sameness that's very fascist. I didn't deprogram myself. And they showed me a slideshow. The slideshow was the principles of an ambush. What? I'm very curious about this. I don't know what Are We the Baddies is, to be honest. I mean, we're all having to, like, deprogram ourselves from, like, being brainwashed by colonization, you know, decolonizing our minds and such, but
claimed masters
yeah,
of
I
the
am
universe
curious
get
about that.
humbled by said same universe. What happened to Ocean Gate is the final form of Silicon Valley karma. Scammers so addicted to their genius image that they genuinely think they can outsmart reality itself. That being said, for the next half hour, let us poor working class folks come together and enjoy one of the few luxuries we still have: watching rich assholes get their karma.
And if this country didn't have unions and child labor laws, maybe your generation would understand the value of hard work.
I can already hear some of y'all who...
I think that's from the Boondocks. We didn't have unions and child labor laws. I was like, wait, are we the baddies? The game Helldivers. I'm not familiar with that either. Damn, that slideshow is horrific. Of, like, that just kind of opening your eyes to the violence of it.
hollering, complaining that I'm being insensitive. Ugh, how could you, Pillboy? Making fun of a poor, innocent man who died in such a tragedy. He didn't harm anybody. As if you expect me to shed tears for an exploitative hack who spent years selling people a service that experts repeatedly warned was unsafe. I've noticed a lot of y'all who demand sympathy for these rich folks operate on a double standard. Y'all never have any smoke for these guys when they dodge taxes, crush unions, or cripple entire communities. all of a sudden, oh, that's just business. But I'm supposed to feel bad when that same business model blows him to smithereens. But hey, I mean, he earned his money the hard way. This video is just me using humor to dissect how at the end of the day, greed and ego will always catch up to a capitalist. And we'll examine this through two ways. First, through this genius mythology that they've created, and through their sinister methods themselves. But first, we need to break down that mythology.
We should watch
Let's
that
find out how
opening
all these
cinematic to
egotistical assholes managed
Helldivers
to
2
use the
sometime.
media.
Ooh, maybe I'll pull this up for Culture Corner tomorrow. I mean, also, like, with you saying, like, having a lot to learn, like, I mean, it's good to recognize, like, where there can be progress with things, but yeah, of understanding that there is, like, a sanctity to human life, but, like, this should not, like, if people are acting in a way that is harmful, like, in order to protect more people for, like, the good of people, that, like, there are some people that the world is a better place without them in it.
For
As we
millions
saw
of people,
Lindsey
that
Graham
enough money and resources can magically make
this
you a
dude.
genius. Hey, who knows? By the end of this video, maybe you too can be a rich elite.
I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. You're remembered for the rules you break.
I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. You're never gonna be a billionaire. Like, never. I know we've been taught when we were younger that if we would just work really hard or come up with some really innovative idea, then we can capitalize off of it and get stupid rich through hard work. I mean, who wouldn't want that? None of that is rooted in real life. The reality of what it takes to actually become a billionaire involves you literally exploiting the systems around you. You're leveraging the capital and power you already have to extract more resources than you're giving back. It literally has nothing to do with hard work. If that was the case, the workers and contractors that make these people rich would be just as wealthy. It's all about ownership. Most people don't understand just how much $1 billion is. If you give a person $1,000 a day for an entire year, that's enough for most of us to live comfortably for generations. You'd still have to live for almost 3,000 years to become a billionaire. We're talking about someone who accumulates more wealth than they could ever spend in multiple lifetimes. The number of people who reach that level is so microscopic, and even getting there requires a combination of factors that has shit to do with the little self-help fairy tales they've always tried to sell us. You're not gonna rich dad, poor dad your way into becoming rich. But when you put it like that, we don't sound so cool. How's the world gonna worship us if they know how evil we are? You're not supposed to say the quiet part out loud. Most folks nowadays are starting to wake up and see just how parasitic this class is. But there's still not enough outrage amongst the general public to want to actively dismantle
they
the
have
system.
to buy
If anything,
it. They have to buy favor. They cannot earn it with hearts and minds of just, you know, being decent people, because that's not what it's about.
That just want to take their spot. You know, when I become a billionaire one day, I'll be one of the ethical ones. Right. The only reason why people entertain this idea of being a billionaire is because they've cultivated a very specific mythology around themselves. We'll call it the genius myth. Basically the idea that people at the top deserve to be there because they're uniquely intelligent, or they've done something so groundbreaking with their wealth, and that makes them qualified to lead society. It's a bunch of stories we tell ourselves to justify why a small handful of rich folks get to hoard more wealth than entire countries. And mind you, this mythology applies to every single one of these giants in Silicon Valley. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, and yes, even your boy, Stockton Rush, although he's not a billionaire. There's a reason why you see all of these clowns try to make themselves out to be the real life Tony Stark, you know, minus Tony's intelligence and charisma. And they all follow this myth because it protects
also
their
we
wealth.
need to... Ew. This fucker. And the way things didn't come crashing down around him after this move, this Hitlerian action, shows just how fascist the systems are that uphold his power.
and convinces everyday folks that one day, if they try hard enough, they can be just like them. Well, if you've got a couple extra $1 million to put down in capital and are willing to violently repress workers globally and strip them of community and resources, then sure, this myth applies to you. Let's find out how to create one. First things first, you have to craft your myth. When you think about it, the average person doesn't get introduced to these folks as just wealthy businessmen. There's always a character version of them that's being played.
You know, you've got this new look, the chains, the shearling jacket. Everything you do seems to become a meme.
At least make them good memes.
Right, well, it seems like...
Notice how every single Silicon Valley billionaire gets packaged with some
The
kind of
Roman
origin
salute,
story.
yeah,
One
exactly.
guy's a college dropout who founded the company
Of
in
like,
his parents' garage.
also somehow people becoming not ableist for a second. They're like, well, we know that he's autistic and like he can move in ways that isn't necessarily like that he can control. That's like, what? So you're just allowing, you're not ableist for this 1 second when you are most of your life. It just is so wild.
Another was the awkward nerd or the eccentric kid who had this crazy vision that nobody else could see. It's the same message every time. This person thinks different and they stand out amongst us ordinary folks. The reason why so much emphasis is put on them being special is because it presents their wealth as the reward for their so-called exceptional intelligence. What you're essentially doing is making them into the main character. Because these guys are such visionaries and geniuses, it only makes sense that they were able to capitalize on the world around them and acquire so much power. At the end of the day, the public still wants to believe the myth, because to them it's proof that the American
Did you see that
dream
dancing?
works.
Do you see what
After
I
all,
mean?
If you sell them a story that this ultra-wealthy guy came from humble beginnings and worked his way up to get his wealth, it makes them feel like they can do it too. The problem is, none of that shit is true. Hardly any of these men came from humble, working class beginnings. They love to sell you the story of Bill Gates being this college dropout who founded Microsoft in his dorm.
There's a lot of people who are forecasting that there'll be software stores just like there are record stores today, and that there'll be thousands and thousands of those. And I think I'd have to agree with that.
But they leave out the part where he attended elite private schools with rare computer access for that era. On top of that, he came from a well-connected, wealthy, upper-middle-class family. He had access and opportunities most kids in the 70s can only dream about. But then there's Jeff...
Well, see, the generational wealth, this is a pattern. Also, not an accident that all of these fuckers are in the Epstein files.
You know, the
what do they
mythology
do when
states
they
Amazon started off as a
have
bookstore in
unlimited
his
power
garage.
and
How
can get away with whatever?
Amazon.com
It becomes a
is never
flex
gonna have
to
any
get
of
away
that
with things.
tactile stuff. We're never going to have...
To get away with abuse of the most vulnerable kinds of people. Do you see how this fucker has aged in reverse because of money? Like, how does he look like he's like 60 years old here? I mean, yeah, that's a little too old. But like, how money somehow like... There are these like compilation videos on YouTube that sometimes I'm recommended that's like, see how when people understand branding or they have like their style that they then are able to take off in their careers, and it shows like Sabrina Carpenter and like Chappell Roan and stuff. But it's like when people have more access to money, it means that they are able to look more what is considered refined, that it's like having more resources helps people to present in a way that is playing into these like colonized ideas of what like beauty is too.
You know, cafes or lattes or anything like that. But we can make Amazon.com every bit as fun and engaging.
They never talk about how his parents invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in startup capital, or the fact that he was
Did you ever see the viral Marxist critique? I did. It's so good.
2 whole years before he even founded Amazon.
I love it because it's also things that like I have thought of before. I think I watched it on a stream one time, and like on the VOD there was someone in my YouTube comments, because I upload the VODs to YouTube, that was like, but he does so much good, how can you say that? Do you not want people to engage in charity and stuff? I'm like, well, it would be nice if like the need for charity didn't exist in the first place. And, like, that's how he makes money, of like the combination of like class worship, celebrity worship in general with fame, but also this idea of like wanting to worship so-called philanthropists. That's like, okay, you do realize that this is exploitation, right?
How could we forget Captain Apartheid himself? Elon loves
Yeah, that is
to
a really
flaunt
great
himself as
video.
this quirky kid who ran nightclubs out of his frat house, and then he went on to found PayPal and Tesla, and soon he's gonna go to Mars. But once again, the mythology leaves out a few details. For starters, he didn't found Tesla. He joined as an early investor and poured money into the company and eventually became the public face most people associate it with. That's the recurring theme with Elon. The myth likes to treat him like this lone inventor personally engineering every breakthrough, when in reality these companies are built by massive teams of scientists, programmers, designers, and
who
engineers.
understand
The mythology
a hell of a
rewrites
lot more
all
than
this
he does.
collective labor into one man's genius. Oh, and don't forget all the blood money that his daddy got from all those emerald mines.
Did the
What about
exact
Mermaid
same
Man
thing the
over
show
here? I'm sure
criticized.
Stockton
Yeah,
earned his
I think
money
that's
the
a
right
great way of putting
I mean,
it
he's
too.
just an explorer. What's wrong with a rich guy wanting to push the boundaries of deep sea exploration? Nah, but this dude came from money too. Contrary to popular belief, he wasn't a billionaire, but his family was still well connected and wealthy long before Ocean Gate was even a thing. In fact, his lineage traces back to some of the very folks who helped shape America's political and economic elite. We're talking oil tycoons. He literally is old money. This is not including the various aerospace ventures he contributed to. While he himself may have only been a multi-millionaire, if there's one thing about rich folks is that they don't really like to risk their own money. Why risk yours when you can get somebody else to make an investment? It's actually pretty easy. You just put together a little sales pitch, sprinkle in a few buzzwords, and get a bunch of other wealthy people to bankroll it for you. You know, think of it like a little cute little party trick.
The same people who hold up Mr. Beast for helping to cure 1,000 people of blindness will ignore the 4 million people treated for blindness by Cuba globally. Yup. Cuba doing so much work globally for the working class. Except they didn't do it for our YouTube check and social capital. Hello. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's stuff like this of like doing it for genuine humanity. And how when people actually have like the means of production of like YouTube, Mr. Beast having YouTube wrapped around his finger of like YouTube will do whatever, will uplift whatever he does because of all of the views that he gets, and like it being this incestuous relationship, that it's like that is also capitalism, of like the co-opting of the media and then convincing people like he's very useful in trying to convince people like, oh, like big YouTubers are actually not that bad, not causing that much harm, when in reality, like, it's covering up a lot of the exploitation that exists.
These guys have the same playbook. They like to butter up
Like,
their
why,
origin.
like, PewDiePie was not deplatformed because of prioritizing white supremacist views and capital over people's humanity.
And make themselves look like these innovative geniuses, so that it makes the fact that they're just a bunch of greedy capitalists look less obvious. Now, you're probably thinking, Pillboy, that's obvious. I mean, nobody falls for that shit. We know they're just a bunch of greedy mosquitoes. You know, but unfortunately there's too many folks out there that buy into the mythology. And this is because the media has an entire ecosystem dedicated to keeping it alive. You didn't think I was going to make a video without bringing in a little media analysis, did you? That brings us to the second half of reinforcing the myth. Once you got it crafted, you have to maintain that narrative that anybody who's quote-unquote smart enough or willing to be on that humble grind set can
I don't know if I'm
magically
familiar
one day
with
be
Mark
filthy
Rober.
rich. This is specifically where the media comes in. They've
But
spent the
honestly,
past few
that is
decades
where a lot of people, get their inspiration. Is like, I just need to do what Mr. Beast does, where it's a lot of clickbait and a lot of using the same techniques, but especially with exploitation. I did see something that like FD Signifier said of like taking a note out of Mr. Beast's book with the type of like titles and stuff of like this catches people's attention for a reason, of like using that for like leftist revolutionary means. And I think that's a good point of like, we need better branding. It's like, I mean, leftism on its face should be against this concept of branding because that's intensely capitalist, but like being willing to perhaps engage in more ways that move the needle, that gets people's attention. Did you see the video shoot glitter bombs that went off on people that stole Amazon packages of porches? Oh, okay. That's Mark Rober. He commodifies the suffering his class position creates, then leverages the social capital from these good deeds to further entrench that inequality, which creates more trauma to commodify. Yep, exactly. Yeah. And how it's like I think I've only seen a couple of Mr. Beast videos and it was off-putting to me, like, for these reasons, but like the look that he gives to the camera is like so smarmy and like hollow and creepy, like when people are like getting emotional because their lives are being affected, that it's like this is trauma porn of like making it so people's trauma is what you're saying is a commodity and that you primarily benefit from it, and this does not solve any issues. In fact, it just gives a pass for the system.
And these folks like they're celebrities. You see it in magazines, interviews, talk shows, biopics. How can we make this person seem so cool that you end up spending more time trying to defend them rather than question their means of acquiring wealth and power? And when I say defend, I don't literally mean, leave my favorite billionaire alone, although some of y'all exist.
I know. I agree, Tree-Bomb. Linton, you are a really great writer. I'm glad that you have said you are continuing to write. It's like, don't put all of this pressure on yourself to be not sleeping for that, like you've said in the past. But yeah, it really is impressive that it's a gift.
I'm more so talking about their existence and how it's so ingrained in our daily lives that most folks can't envision a world without them. Notice how every major problem in society somehow gets framed around some billionaire showing up to solve it. Computing, energy, shipping, digital media, commerce. The media always frames it as these guys leading the charge to some breakthrough in the industry, and this is intentional because it forces you to associate innovation with wealth.
Well, you have to innovate.
Innovation.
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 They really love that word, innovation. And it's scary because it works so damn well. If you look at the mythology, you end up attributing human achievement to them rather than the collective human labor it took to pull off said achievement. Let's take Thomas Edison, for example, and really you can throw Steve Jobs into this with how much similarities they share in the fact that neither one of them were inventors or creators, but they leveraged their resources to gain access to people who were. Both of them had armies of researchers and designers and engineers building the technology that made these giants what they are. But like we said, when it's time to tell the story, the mythology only tends to focus on those who hold the capital. There's a reason why when you hear names like Edison or Jobs, you don't tend to think of names like Francis Upton or William Joseph Hammer or John Crucy, Lewis Latimer, Jeff Raskin, Andy Hertzfeld, Johnny Ive, or even Scott Forstall. You understanding the importance of collective labor is dangerous. That's why the myth requires that you focus on the individual. They need you to be reminded why you need these rich guys. But when you step outside of that mythology, you really see how 9 times out of 10, the solutions that these geniuses are trying to sell back to society are problems they directly contribute to. The whole thing about
something that, this may be an unpopular opinion, but I don't care. I think we should all be suspicious as well of these types of like archetypes of stories of like the hero's journey, almost, of like one person who has the sole ability to save the world. It's like, on one hand, we want young people to dream big. We want young people to be able to feel like there are possibilities in changing the world. But it is very dangerous to be having like where it's a savior complex. Essentially, it's like these Christ stories of saying like, oh, this is Harry Potter or like Frodo, and which like the Christian symbolism in these stories cannot be understated, of like any type of story that is saying that it is just one person who is able to accomplish things, which also that can be something that like superhero movies or stories advocate for. Like, I think that's dangerous, of like, rather than focusing on like what Pillboy is talking about, the collective labor, collective work, that is what gets the world to change, or like how we create any sort of change or solidarity. Which maybe people say like the Fellowship of the Ring, that's about collective, and it's like, well, then why did like Frodo think like, no, I'm the only one? Like, what makes you so special? What makes you so special, Frodo? You think you're the only one in the whole world? There's probably someone in all of I'm forgetting the name of the world of Lord of the Rings. Anyway, that like someone else could do it too. If it bleeds, it leads. The trauma tourists, they gravitate. Shock doctrine in effect. Disaster capitalists salivate from the same fire in the booth, relating to Mr. Beast's model in this context. Yeah, I love that. Remember, a rope is strong because of strings interwoven. A line from the end that relates to your point on collective action. Fierce. Yeah. Like, it's not just one person. And this is the mistake that we often see in so-called organizing, of people wanting to come in and be the face of a movement, but then them also not understanding what that means. Of like, you can't just like you actually have to like earn respect from people and actually care about other human beings if you want them to like follow you into battle, like sometimes quite literally, and like taking on any sort of amount of risk. Like, that has to be earned and rightfully earned. But people who are coming in are like, well, I have this one solution and then this is how it works, and it's like, that's not what actually moves the needle. Of like, you want to come in and be like, oh, I'm Schindler and like Schindler's List, without like acknowledging that like there were many people who ended up like saving themselves from concentration camps, or like the Red Army coming in and freeing, like being the largest like destroyers of Nazis, rather than like talking about like Schindler's like fascist leanings to begin with and like contributing to the problem. Of like, this is why we have to continue talking about collective action. Chris Smalls is such a good example of hard-fought leadership. Yeah, I agree.
Capitalism is that it's not designed to solve problems.
Puts in work, yeah, like actually putting in the time,
I mean, if you were
caring about people, putting your body on the line,
then
being involved.
The system has no incentive to actually eliminate the issue, but because these guys have such a large mythology around them, they can offer quote-unquote solutions to issues that they have a hand in. Let's go back to Jeff. Amazon gets praised as this revolutionary force that made shopping online easier and more convenient for everyone, but they actively use predatory practices to squeeze smaller businesses out of markets. So now that the entire world is literally dependent on Amazon's AWS infrastructure.
Yeah, I don't know if many people realize, but Amazon first started out for books, especially as a way to be like, oh, cheaper books for college students. That is what it was primarily advertised as, and like what people used it as, like for the first part. And I remember seeing how it has changed over time, where now they like offer everything. But yeah, it's like they steal a ton of profit from people. They have made a lot of like independent bookstores go out of business, that it's like people thought Barnes and Noble was bad. Amazon is worse. It's like, that's not to give Barnes and Noble a pass of like pushing independent bookstores like out of business, but like often places that are hubs for community organizing, safe places for people, that it's like, this is a larger beast, especially when it is even more global in nature.
Bezos gets celebrated as this visionary who transformed commerce. Same thing can be said about the internet. A lot of folks don't realize just how much the early pioneers of the internet and the World Wide Web intended for it to be a decentralized space. The whole appeal was that no single corporation or government could control how people communicated or shared information, or built entire communities online. But you fast forward a few decades later, and now a tiny handful of tech companies control pretty much every aspect of how we interact with the digital space. But what about Stockton Rush? Again, he wasn't a billionaire, nor did he have any massive control over the industry. But he still followed the same scamming ass ethos that the rest of them have. He saw one of the most famous tragedies in human history and asked himself, how can I make money off of this?
That was always the plan.
Yeah. Stockton started out with more like altruistic, like, you know, we were going to do it for research and whatnot. And then when he learned he could charge $105,000 a ticket or something like that, it was strictly paying passengers. And then now it went to, I don't know, 250,000, something like that. So that changed the motive a bit, but it was always putting people inside passengers. Paying passengers.
And there was no additional safety considerations or safety factors built in for having untrained passengers or mission specialists put?
Yeah, right. So they called them mission specialists because I think you couldn't have passengers or something, or paying passengers. So I think he called them mission specialists. I think there's a technicality there that he was trying to get around.
Yeah,
but it was always,
workarounds.
at least the pilot was the one that knew what to do in an emergency. And the people that went on board, we told them, here's the mask that needed on if there was a fire inside. Here's water if something happens, and there was food.
In the end, Stockton wasn't some
Lunchables.
altruistic philanthropist who wanted to revolutionize
Then cosplaying
deep-sea
as the working
exploration for
class.
the betterment of mankind. He was just another scummy
When
rich
Trump
guy
says
who
that
thought
he likes McDonald's, that's what I think of. Cosplaying as the working class.
convinced wealthy thrill seekers to pay stupid amounts of money for something they could just brag about at fancy dinner parties. None of these guys are doing anything new. These are greedy capitalists feeding into their own bullshit mythology they've crafted over the years so that they can try to justify why they get to wield so much power and wealth over the rest of us. The next time a rich guy calls himself a genius, I want you to take a needle and poke a hole in his sub. All jokes aside, you need more than just a mythology around you to be a successful billionaire. You still need to scam people.
I feel
Problem
like
is,
calling yourself a genius is kind of the same as like giving yourself a nickname, where it's like you don't do that. That has to be bestowed on you.
rich folks let their ego
Like,
get
let
in the
other
way before
people
they can
who
cross the finish line. So in this next section,
can have
I'm going to teach
some
you how to do exactly
objectivity
that.
decide.
We're going to recreate Ocean Gate without killing ourselves.
Yes, finally. All those bureaucrats and researchers couldn't stop me from achieving my dream.
Is it supposed to be making that noise?
Quiet, you're ruining my innovation. Now it's time to show them how a real risk taker makes it to the bottom of the ocean.
A new word that they're saying, please reconnect to controller. Oh, that is so funny. I know enough about gaming to recognize that. Another word that they have been saying even more in like recent years than like innovation, I think, is like disruption. Like, yeah, we're disrupting the system. Like, okay, that's cute for you to say, but you're just conforming to the system.
Oh.
Through the fire.
That through the fire.
If you're watching this section of the video, then that means I was able to successfully make it to the bottom of the ocean, see the Titanic, and make it back without dying.
Wow.
Unlike someone. And I know some of y'all don't believe me, but that's okay, I have proof. In the last section, we went over the mythology on how these billionaires protect themselves in society. The thing is, you still have to go out.
Okay, this may seem a little off topic, but we had a get together with some friends a little bit ago of decks and desserts where we made PowerPoints on like things that we were obsessed with when we were young. And someone did their PowerPoint on being obsessed with the Titanic, like learning about it around like fourth grade-ish, also like growing up in the 90s, where like that movie came out and stuff, where they actually had like, they showed boobs and it was PG-13. That was some wild shit. And then like parents are like, oh, it's fine, or they like the movie enough that they get the clean version, where like people had to go into like these VHSs, because that's what they were, and had to like snip out the film of it. That's what that was. But I want to present my deck, my presentation that I showed there. I want to present that tomorrow as part of Culture Corner.
Exploit people. That shit is just to defend you once you've already obtained 1% status. As much as Stockton might have thought that he could compete with the big dogs and use their mythology, the truth is he was just really bad at exploiting people. That's basically your one job as a multi-millionaire, and he couldn't even do that. So, in this section, I'm gonna give you a little Krusty Krab training video. I'm gonna put myself in Stockton's shoes, and we're gonna run Ocean Gate how a real
Krusty Krab is unfair. Mr. Krabs is in there, standing at the concession, plotting his oppression.
Shit that he was on.
That episode is pretty radical, I have to say. Okay, this is gonna be a quick diversion, but I have to show that. SpongeBob going on strike. There are many problematic things about SpongeBob in hindsight that I'm like, I don't think kids should be watching this. Where he's like, I will restore the working man to his rightful glory. Here we go. I went to the captain of the Titanic's house once. Walked past, not visited. Oh, okay. It's like, whoa, what was that about? Well, tell me about that.
I will restore the working man to his rightful glory. I will dismantle this oppressive establishment board by board. I will saw the tables of tyranny in half. Gnaw at the ankles of big business. Squidward will be so proud.
Yeah, there's that. Krusty Krab is unfair. Oh, they had a plaque.
Krusty Krab is unfair. Mr. Krabs is in there, standing at the concession, plotting his oppression.
What the heck does that mean?
I don't know. Squidward told me to yell it at people.
Then...
Yep, that's what that is. Anyway.
I don't have an ego, nigga. I'll eat Captain Crunch.
That's
for
pretty
dinner.
radical to
So
be
let's get
showing
started.
kids,
Step
like
one,
workers
protect
going on
your
strike.
Capital. Like we said earlier, the rich don't stay rich by using their own money. They use other people's money in the form of investments. If the business succeeds, I get richer. But if it fails, then hell, we all lose money. But it's not gonna hurt me nearly as much if I were to put all my eggs into one basket. The whole point is to mitigate risk by transferring as much of
I'm
it
gonna grab a
as you can
snack
to
real
other
quick,
people as possible. And you're
but
probably thinking,
I'll keep playing
wow,
this.
yeah, that's really shitty.
I'll be right
but
back.
You're a billionaire. Since when do you care about morality? You don't know what that word means. See, the average working class person like you and I can't afford to play this game. One bad investment, hell, a couple bad paychecks, and we risk losing everything. These rich folks, on the other hand, are playing with a whole different deck. Because you have access to more resources, you're essentially allowed to fail upward. The same way the working class is responsible for giving you this wealth, they're also allowed to catch the bullet for you. Let's take WeWork, for example. That company spent years burning through all their investor money while trying to market themselves as the future of office space. So when the whole thing started to fall apart, thousands of employees started to be laid off, while the founder, Adam Neumann, walked away with a package worth over $1 billion as a part of SoftBank's rescue deal. You can shift the blame onto your employees while your rich buddies bail you out. But let's also use Uber as an example. Why own a massive fleet of cars when you can convince millions of working class people to supply supply the cars, pay for the gas, handle the maintenance, handle the insurance, and absorb the wear and tear, none of that risk is on you. If business slows down or costs go up, then sure, yeah, the company might lose a little revenue, but the driver is the one stuck taking the hit. See, now Stockton actually understood this concept better than most of y'all might think. The Ocean Gate wasn't funded entirely out of his own pocket. He still had investors. Financially speaking, he was playing the game correct on paper. Where he fucked up is that he put too much of—
There's much more like dill flavored stuff. I don't know if this is happening elsewhere in the world, but especially in the US. So these are like Cheez-Its that are like dill flavored, but they're like pickle flavored, but this is like the off-brand kind. And it's kind of like off-putting, but also I keep eating them. This is the American dilemma. Also, with like this raging diarrhea that like these parasites are causing now in the US with produce, it's like, okay, we can't eat anything without it killing us. Great. Glad that's happening.
Personal money and reputation into a single high-risk venture. This is why you don't put all your eggs into one carbon fiber basket. If my scam depends entirely on one experimental submarine surviving a trip to the bottom of the ocean, then I already fucked up. Who the hell is gonna trust that?
There were economic issues with the company asking us to forego getting paid for periods of time with the promise that they would get us caught up in paychecks, you know, after the first of the year. They asked for volunteers, and you know, I don't think anybody did it, but you know, it was clear that the company was economically very stressed, and as a result, that they were making decisions and doing things that resulted in, I felt that the safety was just being compromised way too much.
Investors already didn't want to take a risk on your rinky-dink sub, so now you're borrowing cash and pouring your own money into the thing.
He tried to explain the mission specialist aspect to it. I talked about the receiving any sort of compensation aspect. The conversation basically ended when he, after explaining that the Coast Guard had tried to, I don't know, shut him down in California, and that he wouldn't operate there anymore, but that if the Coast Guard became a problem, that he would buy himself a congressman and make it go away.
Mr. McCoy, is that a direct quote?
He said I would buy a congressman and make basically the
I found
problem.
my really old work from like 5 years ago.
Because he had
the art
no
looks kind
real
of
way
horrible,
of
but the
managing
ACAB
risk
is
by
strong.
pushing it onto the people
Ooh,
beneath him.
I love
Ocean
that.
Gate was solely dependent on proving that the Titan
I mean,
itself
what you are considering horrible, I don't know. You're probably being harsh on yourself. But especially the ACAB sentiment. Love that. If you are wanting to share.
So when the shit ended up imploding, everything else went right along with the sub. That literally brings us to step 2. Build a sub that actually works. Stockton was a cheap ass. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that's probably the most obvious part. Like, he'd still probably be alive today if he just followed common sense. All evil rich people know how to cut corners. The more corners you cut, the more profit you keep for yourself. The problem is, Stockton, dude, you literally had no corners to cut. Your shit barely worked. Now, I work for which is no stranger to safety violations and poor working conditions. They found out a long time ago that they could cut corners in terms of safety because
Ooh. Oh, wait. I think I might have clicked this out of order. Here we go. SpongeBob. Millennials still are obsessed with SpongeBob. It left a very big impact on us. Okay, here we go. This one. Are these in order? This one. Wait, did I already click on that? One. Okay, I'm guessing the first one, they should be in order. Okay. So this. First frame. What are you talking about? Oh, I love this. I seen the light shining over the wall, but I didn't think it would look like this. I've only heard stories. My granddad used to live here before he was exiled. Who was that? I saw him arguing back at home. Things got ugly. I've never seen prosthetics so advanced in my life. Wow. X's on you. Oh, wait, eyes on you. We could only make one scene, but they're in like an apartheid cyberpunk world and they go to explore the other side. Okay. Intruder detected. Fugitive spotted. Run! Code 6 activated. Quick, look, there's an alley. Let's go, they're gaining on us. Looks like we could get up that ladder. Pull me up. There's nowhere to go quickly. Jump to that train, go. I don't know about this. Whoa! That was a close one. Where do you think we're headed? I don't care as long as the robots don't follow. They might catch us if we make it to the station. That window is open. We might make it through if we jump. If these could be useful... Oh, these could be useful if we end up in danger again. Fugitive found. Uh-oh. Look. Look, jet skis over there. Hey. Grab each one. Where are we going? Hurry, let's climb on that boat. Ah! Dead end. Uh-oh. What's gonna happen next? Drop the gun. Don't take another step. I don't want to shoot. Come on, we have to get out of here. Uh-oh. You really saved us. All I did was what had to be done. They were going to get us. I love the ACAB's sentiment. The jet ski was the end? Oh, shit. Sorry. Because then they're escaping. Oh. Okay. Sorry about that. Uh-oh. So it ends on a cliffhanger? The dead end? Yeah, I do like the ACAB sentiment. And creative. Was this one that you were making on your own, or was this for an assignment? I really like that you were pulling in the... You were setting the scene with politics as well. Especially being younger. That's not a very common thing to do, I feel. It was for an assignment. Okay. Very cool. Yeah, it's been cool to see your artwork over the years of like how you showed that one that you did for an assignment in uni and like some of your current artwork now, that like the progression over time. I love that. The groundwork was very fucking shoddy. But that scene didn't fall too flat. No. And like you get the idea, of course, of like you're actually able to track it. And honestly, that is some of the like hardest part about like cartoon work or just like yeah, any sort of like graphic novel work, anime work, manga work is like actually having it visually make sense and you understand a plot. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. I'm excited to see you continue with your art.
And loves this company so much and won't give a shit about us, the workers. But when companies do this, they at least have a few standards in place to avoid a serious lawsuit and keep the place functioning. The Titan sub was literally a sinking coffin. The pressure hull was made out of carbon fiber, when industry standard materials typically call for titanium alloys. Reason why they don't use carbon fiber is because, well, it behaves unpredictably under repeated compression cycles, you know? Stuff he would have known had he actually went through the right channels.
So how many years old is this sub?
Well, we had to remake the carbon fiber hull one time because the last one wasn't as well manufactured as it should have been.
Oh, great.
And
Sound of the carbon fiber hull buckling.
once I've sealed this, you've been sealed inside this. We have 4 days of life support. That is the safest place on planet Earth.
It's horrifying.
The entire world could be destroyed. A nuclear bomb could take out the ship. And for 4 days, we're alive. At the end of 4 days, we're dead. But for 4 days, it's nothing. 100
This
million
idiot.
pounds of force. It is like we just put.
That was the project where I first read Persepolis. Your tutor gave it to you? Persepolis is so good. I want to read that next for Band Book Club.
In the world's safe.
I love
The
that.
main hull itself
I love
even
that you're
had
inspired by
manufacturing
Persepolis
They found
too.
voids, wrinkles, delamination on the carbon fiber. There were communication issues, electronic errors. They literally had an acoustic warning that the sub was gonna implode a week before it happened. Like, the fucking Ed and Eddie boys could have built a better scam than this. Remember the little Monkey Land park they built? That shit lasted longer than this sub. And last but not
Ed
least,
and
how
Eddie.
could I forget the Logitech controller literally piloting this sub?
Millennial Core.
I don't even have a joke for that. Everything that wasn't supposed to happen happened.
He had said that's what we expected. That's the carbon fiber seasoning. I've never heard of seasoning a hole.
We were looking at the data.
Not listening to people who actually have knowledge about shit. Imagine that. The reason I say the foundation was shoddy, it was 230 slides of a 16-year-old idiot throwing shit at the wall. I mean, especially for 16, I think that's good. There's a whole lot that needed deconstructing. But I mean, I love that you shared that, especially with like how I said, like, we can be extremely hard on ourselves, and like just because like you're young and don't necessarily like have the skill set that like you desire to have or like eventually will have, like it can be like a good exercise in like being there for our inner children, of like going back through some of the like artwork or like projects that we worked on to be like, you know what, I like had a lot of heart in this and like creativity that often can get like beaten out of us, where it's like skill set may increase, but also like the freedom of your mind to like imagine certain things can like be constricted just growing up into adulthood. So yeah, I love that. I love that you were able to like even show some of the political aspects of like, yeah, it's kind of like an apartheid state, and like you can see some of the inspiration from Persepolis too.
Told Stockton, I said, look, we don't know what good looks like. What I do know is it shouldn't look like that.
That is a read.
All this happened.
I know
because
it
he
shouldn't
was
look
cheap,
like that.
But someone like him will never admit it. He tried to claim that it was him being an innovator and that he was revolutionizing the industry.
I couldn't help noticing how many pieces of this sub seemed improvised.
We can use these off-the-shelf components. I got these from Camper World. We run the whole thing with this game controller. There were a lot of rules out there that didn't make engineering sense to me. There's a limit. You know, at some point, safety just is pure waste. I mean, if you just want to be safe, don't get out of bed, don't get in your car, don't do anything.
Yeah.
Safety is purest. This guy's like, uh-oh, I don't want to be here anymore.
I think I can do this just as safely by breaking the rules.
You can't streamline a design
Yeah, this
that
fucker
doesn't
deserves
work. If I
the
buy a car
end.
and I take out the airbag and take out the brakes,
He
the
had.
seatbelt, if I take out half the damn engine
But
and
the
replace
thing that's so rare is like the people who are making these decisions actually experiencing the consequences of these decisions. That is an extremely rare situation where he was even willing to go in this thing and then he died because of it. That, like, most of the time when, like, bullshit like this is made, that they're like, oh yeah, I know it's not safe and I don't care. And then they're not in one of the things that they're creating, that it's like the McDonald's CEO or whatever, how he like is not eating any of the food, where he's like with the bites, like I'm gonna make a SpongeBob reference again. He has like Squidward bites where like Squidward's eating a Krabby Patty where he's like like barely taking a bite out of it. That is what he was doing.
Steering wheel with a fucking Xbox controller. That's not me streamlining shit. That's literally the problem with all this Silicon Valley disruption bullshit. They act like every industry standard is just some arbitrary rule invented by haters or bureaucrats. No, these industry standards exist because somebody already tried the dumb shit you're about to do and people got hurt. They try to make being cheap look sexy and smart. He also tried to pull the diversity gimmick.
When I started the business, one of the things you'll find, there are other sub-operators out there, but they typically have gentlemen who are ex-military submariners, and you'll see a whole bunch of 50-year-old white guys. I wanted our team to be younger, to be inspirational, and I'm not going to inspire a 16-year-old to go pursue marine technology. But a 25-year-old, who's a sub-pilot or a platform operator or one of our techs can be inspirational. And so we've really tried to get...
yeah, pretending like he's so progressive and wants diversity. That's such bullshit.
Intelligent, motivated, younger individuals involved, because we're doing things that are completely new.
I saw a lot of idiots online.
When really it's about exploiting young people and not paying them as much.
And try to make it seem like, oh, well, you look at that. DEI got the Ocean Gate guy killed. When no, he got killed because he tried to build an experimental vehicle with no engineering standards or regulations. Had nothing to do with anybody's gender or skin color. He had a massive
that
ego,
engineering
hired
stuff
whoever
didn't make
was willing
sense
to
to me.
build his
Yeah,
giant death
because you're
machine
dumb.
without
Because you
calling him
weren't
out
an
for being a total
engineer.
idiot. Promise you, had the engineers been white men, he would still be 6 feet deep in a pineapple under the sea. Funny part is, the people blaming DEI are accidentally proving my point. They're so obsessed with that mythology of the great genius CEO that they assume everybody else in the room is irrelevant. Stockton was still the CEO. He called the shots and approved everything. If the sub had worked, then he would have taken all the credit. But when it failed, all of a sudden folks wanted to blame everybody except the guy calling the shots. Oh, so now he's not a negligent idiot once black people are involved. Okay, I get it now. That makes sense. Always the genius when things go right, but somehow never responsible when things go wrong. All of this is what happens when you want to be like all the other big hotshot rich guys, but you don't have the expertise or the wits to pull it off. He's a fake demon. But worst of all, he failed to follow the third and final evil rich guy rule. Kill your ego before your ego kills you. This step isn't really limited to just Stockton or Ocean Gate. Matter of fact, this is a problem all of these uber wealthy folks have. They get so powerful and egotistical that they actually start believing in their own mythology. The mythology is not for you, it's for the poor people. The mythology is the little ruse that lets you get away with your exploitation. It's not actually a guide on how to live your life. You're supposed to be the guy behind the curtain pulling the lever. The minute you start actually believing you're Tony Stark, that's when you've already fucked up. No
The younger individuals more likely to be part of the Industrial Reserve Army. That's way more likely to take your death trap job. Yup. Taking advantage of their precarity to force them into his BS. Yep.
He was dying.
Yep. Exactly, of limited availability of jobs, of being young, of having to like make it into the job market in general. Yeah.
With a rare pancreatic neuron.
And also be like, you should be grateful for the experience. Bullshit.
Within 9 months, it spreads at a deadly rate. Despite this, it's treatable if caught in its early stages, something Steve was lucky enough to do. What did the genius of Apple do? He thought he knew more than the doctors. He refused treatment and started looking for alternative medicine and supplements that have no clinical record of working. Usually folks fall into quack science and medical scams because they're denied access to medicine and treatment by our broken healthcare system. But no, Steve was a billionaire. He had access to top-of-the-line treatments. I understand that he followed certain dietary restrictions, but you have many vegans, vegetarians, and folks who follow natural medicine who would literally jump at the idea of treatment that would effectively remove their cancer before it spreads. All of this came down to his ego. You had a man who spent decades being told that he was the smartest in the room and a visionary and genius, and started believing that he knew more than doctors. In the end, the co-founder of Apple got killed by his own PC.
And then they do a bio.
Which also how we were talking about the other day that you mentioned, Linton, this book of decolonizing methodologies of like, that's not to say that like what we know of as like quote modern day medicine is not rampant with issues, and that like there aren't holistic, especially indigenous forms of medicine that also work. But like this man who has all of the resources at his disposal but like wants to pretend like he knows better than everyone else around him is a continuation of that same like colonizer mentality of like, no, like you don't know this, I just want to do what I want to do. And it's like, okay, well, it's your life,
very emotional.
literally.
They say, this is good. It's one of these very slow-growing 5% of pancreatic cancers that can actually be cured. But Steve Jobs doesn't get operated on right away. He tries to treat it with diet. He goes to spiritualists. He goes to various ways of doing it macrobiotically. Quit trying to treat it with all these roots and vegetables and things. Just get operated on.
Which also probably doing it in a very colonized manner.
Too late. Well, one assumes it's too late because by the time they operate on them, they notice that it has spread to the tissues around the pancreas.
How could such a smart man do such a stupid thing?
And that leaves us with your boy. Somebody was gonna die in this thing. We all knew that. Everybody knew that. I mean, who would climb into this shit? Forget the $250K price tag. Would you climb in for free? Then you find out that Stockton was riding in the shit himself.
Okay, so first question. Give me some background. What brought this on? How long have you had some of these concerns? What led up to this, and what's your goal with this document?
Well, no, the goal for this document for me is the safety of anybody that goes in there, including you.
I understand.
Okay? All that porosity, the voids, the DLAMs, everything in there, the glue runs, it doesn't concern you.
Not at all, because carbon fiber is better in compression than tension, and that's what nobody understands. It's completely opposite of what everyone else says. Everyone says, oh, carbon fiber can't handle compression. They're full of shit, and I've proven them to be full of shit.
Stockton, I think you have to listen to me here. The main thing which you are sweeping under the carpet here is if something goes wrong with you being in that submersible, okay, your topside support. Those are the ones that are left with the aftermath. Those are the ones that are left to answer to the accident investigation team. OceanGate is done. Everybody says, oh, it'll just be Stockton's wife. That's the only person you could be liable for. Nonsense. The accident investigation team will come down.
I understand.
It would shut the industry down.
I understand, and that's bullshit, but that's fine.
Okay.
We're doing weird shit here, and I am definitely out of the mold. There's no question. I'm doing things that are completely non-standard, and I'm sure the industry thinks I'm a fucking idiot. That's fine. They've been doing that for 8 years. I'm going to continue on the way I'm doing, but I'm not going to force people to join my religion if they don't want to. I'm not going to die on this thing.
Okay.
You were so far up your own ass that you genuinely
Famous
believe
last
you
words.
have built a state-of-the-art prototype submersible. And look
Be
what
like,
it cost.
I've been attacked. People in the industry don't think shit of me. Yeah, I wonder why.
Happens when you let your ego get to your head. See, me, if I were in his shoes, I would have genuinely committed to the bit and embraced my role as an evil rich scumbag. What you should have done is built a little simulator. See, they don't actually have to go at the bottom of the ocean. Just trick them into thinking they are. Model it after a ride at Disney World or Universal or some shit. Throw some screens on the wall. You know, shake the room up a little bit. I don't know, play some whale noises. I'll even pull a fire festival
An
and make
expensive
everyone pay
guillotine
tickets to see the launch of the sub.
I know.
So if anything happens,
Imagine,
I'll just use these poor folks' money
imagine
to
being
cover
that rich
themselves.
and like
Half the
dying
rich
by
folks
the guillotine
already
you
paid
built too.
$250K to sit in the tube and stare at a rusty boat. You think they're gonna know the difference?
And it's a shitty
Everybody wanna be an
guillotine.
evil scumbag until it's time to do evil scumbag shit. 3 years later, and we're still using what happened to Stockton Rush as a case study on how extreme wealth and ego can make a person believe that they're invincible. It was a horrible event that ended up taking 5 lives as a result of greed and malicious negligence. That being said, do I feel bad for Stockton? No.
Well, we're Americans. We don't quit just because we're wrong. We just keep doing the wrong thing until it turns out right.
I don't feel bad for a dead rich guy. It's pretty simple, and in fact, I don't think it can get any more clear than that. If you're a regular viewer...
That's also like a play off of the Winston Churchill quote that's like, Americans will do the right thing eventually once they've exhausted every other option. It's like, okay, well, how long does that have to take? What if that never happens? Also, are we going to trust Winston Churchill for understanding what is right and wrong? I don't think so.
Channel, then you know I usually reserve the final section of my videos for solutions, if you can even call them that, or at least a roadmap of what we can collectively do to mitigate the problem at hand. I'm hesitant to call any of these solutions this time around, as well, we all know what the only way to truly fix the issue is, and that's to dismantle the capitalist system that these leeches benefit from and to redistribute their wealth under a new system. You don't
That
need a
other,
YouTube
the
video
coup
to tell you
song,
that much.
we've got 5 million ways to kill a CEO, slap him up and shake him up, and then, you know, let him off the
I want to
floor
make this absolutely
and bait him
clear
with
to
the
any
dough.
and all
You can do
folks
it,
watching.
funk it, or
This
do it
video
disco.
is not a celebration
Amazing.
or advocacy
Incredible
of any sort
art.
of harm or violence towards anyone. That being said, while I'm not
That's another good
celebrating
one
their
by
death,
them.
I'm not sad, nor do I feel bad that they're
Another
dead
Boots
either.
Riley special.
A huge problem I've noticed is that our sympathy is pretty much required for the abuse of people at the top of the system. We're constantly told to show grace for these folks, the same people who are profiting off of making our lives harder and killing the planet. But the minute consequences catch up to them, we're supposed to put everything aside and remember their humanity. Mind you, that humanity never gets extended to the millions of everyday people like us, you know, the ones who actually have to bear the cost of these people's actions every single day. It's pure hypocrisy. It's not crazy or cruel to say that these folks don't deserve my sympathy. If you were to take away all the fancy TED Talks and put their actions and words on paper and then read them out loud, it would sound like a comic book villain. These people are cartoonishly evil with just how much they disregard human life as well as the planet.
People decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has had a massive issue on productivity. You know, tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. You know, they have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years.
Pillboy.
And we need to see that change. We need
Hello,
to see
Britt Griff.
unemployment rise.
Welcome.
Unemployment has to jump 40-50% in my view. We need to
Babies
see
in the
pain economy. We need
chat.
to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around.
The insanity of saying, like, COVID made it so people don't want to work. It's like when there are all of these articles coming out now, especially talking about young people, like, young people just don't want to work. That's like, how about maybe have more jobs available? Have we thought about that? The same people who are like writing these articles, or like the companies they're writing them for, like actively pulling up the ladder behind them and being like, sorry, I'm gonna stay in this position until I die, or like whatever the fuck, like refusing to mentor next generations. That is just so, that's ugly behavior. It's also just blaming people for their own circumstances. This is a consistent thing that we have seen, like, you know, young people being on the receiving end of this, like millennials also got this, but like, yeah, just the brainwashing, the mental gymnastics is really wild. AI writing articles about how people won't work anymore. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, hi, like someone with like a writing background that's like, AI is like making it so there aren't any jobs available. That's great. Cool. And I actually have like more job experience than people who are graduating from school. That's like, it really is a bleak situation out there.
And there is a
Tonight, the head of a drug company who's accused of gouging patients says he should be thanked. In one instance, he raised the price of a drug used by AIDS patients from $13.50 a pill to $750.
There's a company that was selling an Aston Martin at the price of a bicycle, and we buy that company.
Yeah, queerphobic. Like life-saving medications. I mean, this doesn't go for just for like AIDS medications like PrEP, but also for insulin. Like all of these medications, all of these things that we need to survive, of like food during the pandemic, housing, of just pricing going up astronomically because they just can, and they do. I saw a post that basically said younger people can't believe people wrote papers at all before AI. Oh no. I've heard that as well, of like there's some, like there is a poll done of like a lot of college age people say that they have used AI for research or writing a paper, but they also disagree with AI and like taking jobs. And it also is just like, and I don't know if that's like true or if that was like cherry picked. Wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, you know. But also this larger, like that is a microcosm of this larger world of like we're all existing in capitalism. And especially with like, from what I've heard, there are some teachers, professors that like require students to use AI, or workplaces that do. Like, you need a report. Like one of my aunties, she said that like she's in a managerial position as a copywriter, an incredible writer who has had a great career, and feeling like she is pressured that she's going to be pushed out of a job and that they have to report every day on how they've used AI. Like, what? I'm optimistic we'll be able to foment true class consciousness in these conditions, though, so there's some sort of silver lining. It will be so radicalizing. Yeah, the thing that's hard is like conditions usually just have to get to be so difficult that like people are forced to experience the real-time harm before there is more consciousness. But we have gotten to a point of like, I do think that's good to be pointing out the silver lining of like, we have gotten to a point where like these fuckers can't even just say like with the data centers, where they would normally be like, oh, this is for people, and like how even conservative people are against these data centers of like, we want clean water. It's like, okay, so now you care when it affects you personally. Interesting how that seems to be a trend. Like, you don't want to offer other people humanity when things negatively affect them, but okay, that just is exhausting. But yeah, it's like, now that people are gaining more class consciousness, like this is why they're afraid, the ruling class, why they are like hearkening back to the beginning of this stream of like cracking down on thought crimes, of saying that like you can't be in support of any sort of resistance effort. So like if you're against anything what the government is doing, you are an enemy and you can be imprisoned. And it's like, that has been true for many populations of just like trumped up charges and making it so that like there are political prisoners or people who are imprisoned or like being forced into situations where like what is considered quote unquote crime is like the only way for people to survive. That it's like, okay, now how do we get organized? What do we do with it? Oh wow, kinda don't want a real job now. I know. A real job, a very real job being taken by unreal entities. Like artificial, that's in the name. It's artificial. It's so wild. And who knows, my last message could be played at a trial. It could be considered against state interest arbitrarily. I know. I know, there have been times that I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have like associated my name with streaming. But also, that's not going to stop anyone from like finding out my name anyway, you know? An American Activities Commission. Yep. Yep. The House Committee on Un-American Activities, HCUA, popularly the House Un-American Activities Committee, was an investigative committee of the United States House of Representatives created in 1938. Interesting that was happening around that time. Their goal was to investigate alleged disloyalty and subversive activities on the part of private citizens, public employees, and those organizations suspected of having communist ties. It's not an accident as well that like all of these people in like Trump and his cronies, the MAGA crowd, that they are talking about communists at this point, the way they are. Of like, this is an ushering in of more McCarthyism, like this whole situation was, where this is not an accident that it's happening before midterm elections too, because they can't run on affordability, they can't run on really like immigrants and like immigration, because it's like their party is in power. They can't run on queer people not being in like the workplace or existing. I mean, they still will and still are, but like when so many of us are forced out of jobs and are not even like allowed to be in public life in many ways, that it's like now they're having to run on communists. It's like, this is what that Niemöller poem is like, first I didn't say anything when they were going for like the unionists and the communists and stuff. It's like, yeah, this is a pattern. Exactly what you were saying, Brickriff, time is a flat circle. It really is like humans, and like especially the oppressors that exist, they aren't creative. They don't have creativity on their side, because they aren't about, despite like all of these like people, the people we were talking about in this video, of like people in the capitalist class saying they're about innovation. They don't know anything about innovation, because it's just repeating a lot of the same bullshit. With Palantir and other data aggregators, I wouldn't be surprised if union busting will be taking place pre-hiring, so we might be written off anyways. Fuck it, I know, which is why it's like, we have to, in my mind, like, what are the ways that we actually fight against this bullshit? We're so disempowered in many ways, of like creating these systems of resistance and like self-sufficiency outside of capitalism, of like bringing back more like bartering and trading. It's like, unfortunately, we need money in order to survive, like pay for food or like housing, but how like being involved in mutual aid, like that's not the solution. Like, it should be working towards something more, but it is a solution for people to actually have some sort of means and care while the system is being so violent. You can jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail a revolution. Yep. There's a reason why they're afraid of us, like, actually speaking our minds and talking to one another. It's like, you would think that they would be satisfied with, like, having all of this power, and that they wouldn't be going after individual people who, like, don't have any power but are just speaking their minds. That should, like, as you're talking about silver lining, that should be a signal to us that we need to be talking more, that we need to be expressing our ideas, because like they are threatened, the ruling class, capitalists, 1%, they are threatened by us actually speaking our minds, our own opinions, having our own opinions that's not just served to us on an algorithm, that isn't just fed to us by AI, and that they control all of these things. And they especially don't want us talking to each other. We need wider mutual aid networks that can support a sustained general strike for a long while. I know. This is something that I've been thinking about, of like existing mutual aid networks that like we can help support, like with this community. I know there are like so many different areas that we can be like giving and donating and stuff, and like we're all having to survive anyway. But yeah, it's like we need a worldwide strike in order to stop what's going on. And unfortunately, if there isn't mutual aid involved, it just becomes like the most privileged people taking the day off, instead of like actively harming these centers of power, especially when it comes to like trade, commercial choke points. A little bit ago, we were talking about that in organizing and striking and how that is much more strategic, but also the workers in these areas are the areas that they're often the most disempowered. And there's a reason for that, like transportation and commerce of shipping and media, that it's like all of this is part of the machine, and it takes a lot of sacrifice on our end to actually halt it. But we have to try. General strike now. Global mutual aid. The workers of the world unite. Yep. Fierce. Nothing to lose but these cringe chains. Cringe chains. Pueblo unido jamás será vencido. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and like as we are united and speaking out too, like there's safety in numbers when we are speaking our opinions. Yep, so this is what we're in right now in many ways, and it is only going to be getting worse. Not to be a doomer about it, but I think being realistic, especially as we in the US get closer to midterms, but like as we were watching that video that you shared, Linton, from No Justice, that this is happening all over the world, of the ruling class really clamping down on us, especially as they feel their power, them losing their power, that they get increasingly violent. And this is where we really have to be connected to one another and engaged with networks of support, especially in mutual aid networks, collectives that we're involved in, but also with like organizing at large, making it so that like we can actually have a release valve, a way to channel the feelings that are involved with this kind of aggressive violence and oppression, so that we aren't just like sitting and suffering. I'm starting with, well, I like to teach people how to make water safe from drinking, and I work my way up from there. That's amazing. I love that. Unfortunately, it seems like clean air is becoming scarce and air is more fundamental, and I don't know how to clean air at a scale quite like water. I mean, if you ever have some things that like I can share here, I would love to support what you're doing and spread information. I really am like, you all amaze me. Thank you for existing. Thank you for being who you are, for caring about other people and education and striving for a better world. That like really gives me hope. I'm trying to as well work on not being as doomer with everything, but yeah, it's like actually connecting with people and like seeing the humanity in one another, how there are like, we care. A lot of people care, and that's something to hold on to.
And we asked to charge Toyota prices. I don't think that should be a crime. Right now, it's a free market, and it's up to each company to decide what price is proper.
Ask yourself, if this person was a character in a movie, would you feel bad for them? You don't have to, because that's exactly how
Industrial
they view you
hemp?
as a fictional
Ooh.
fucking character. Your life is as important and as expendable to them as a character in a movie. I want to rewind the clock back to these
DIY Air Force activities. Would you be cool with me going over this on a stream sometime? And other indoor plants? Okay. I need to really lock in and get the Discord figured out, since we locked things down. I'll be doing that over the weekend. I know I have said that, but I do have more time this weekend. So yeah, I want to be able to do that so that we can like more easily share some of this stuff, and also have like a way to like an archive of things that we can keep track of some of these resources. Thank you very much. I love this. Or like how Bunso Aliano was talking about earlier of like helping people understand like basic medical care and first aid, of like the more self-sufficient we can become, not reliant on all of these systems, the better off we will be. Starboard, I know. And it's like, this is even like, it's not like there are like that many of us even so far just like talking about this in this community. This is a pretty like tight-knit small community, but like how already there are ideas for self-sufficiency of like when we're talking about it, when we are willing to actually exchange information, like how valuable that is, and not valuable in like a monetary sense, in like a life-saving sense. The free PDF is lit where there are no doctors. Ooh, I don't know what that is. Donde no hay doctor. Sometimes it feels smaller than it might actually be. Yeah, that is true. I know, that's not to diminish everyone who is involved here. Like, I'm very grateful for you even being willing to tune in. Sometimes that can surprise me. I'm like, oh, people are here? Interesting. I'm looking this up. No hay doctor. Thank you very much. This is amazing. Some good research materials for agitprop. Yeah. I mean, with our combined brains. On Wayback Machine? Okay, that's good to know. Been reading Parenti's Inventing Reality. Ooh, I'm not familiar with that. Otherwise, they charge $9. Okay, thank you for letting me know. That's a great resource.
4th, 2022. Early that morning, United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was assassinated on his way to get coffee, literally gunned down on a typical Wednesday morning. When the news broke a few hours later, you saw a stark contrast between the media's narrative and the public's reaction. Despite their attempts to
so this is what we were talking about the other day on the stream of that dude and his unaliving. Thank you. This is so fucking fierce. Love this. You all are so cool. That dude. Like, yeah, whatever his name is, that one capitalist. Inventing Reality is a more grounded Marxist analysis similar to Chomsky's Manufacturing Consent. Bonus points because it means I can avoid Chomsky like the plague. I know. All of that is so disappointing. Not to say like there weren't warning signs with Chomsky before, but like how it just goes to show like people who claim to be for certain ideas or ideals of like we were talking about yesterday, like separating art from the artist, and how like we need to be skeptical of people if they are abusive or they are continuing these systems of oppression in their personal lives, that we have to be skeptical of the things they create as well. But also like if there is any sense of truth that we need to reframe it and reclaim it, that we can't just be like, okay, they were able to take this idea of like, okay, well, how about we do what he did, but do it better in talking about it. Ubuntu, I am because you are. Yep. Exactly. It's just a better book too. Chomsky was never truly critical. Yeah. I agree. Okay, inventing reality. I love this. I love this. Okay, just so that we can... I'm thinking about time. Maybe I'll speed it up just a bit. I did want to get to this video on... What is it? The... Weingarten Rights. I want to talk about that as we're talking about organizing. You have a show to... No, this is like why I like streaming though, is like being able to interact with you all and have discussion. That's like what I like hope I can bring of like, I like talking to people if people are interesting. If people like have like good things to say and contribute, then like, yeah, that's like what makes like life meaningful for me personally, but also talking about like education and stuff. But I do want to get to this other part about rights with unionizing that is very pertinent to what we're discussing. So I will speed this up just a bit. We're almost done with it anyway. Once again, I was pretty ambitious with going over things today, but we will talk about like the quote unquote nice guy thing that Animated Sarah brought up yesterday in their raid. So we'll go over that tomorrow. And I think also tomorrow I'm probably going to get started earlier, and this time I do have more time for this. And have more of like a dedicated section for the voice of Bachaprat. This is a resource. Someone shared with me of a few. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Wow. I'm amazed at all of the resources you all have. I'm very impressed.
Frame what
I'll
happened
be
as
checking
a
it out.
dangerous vigilante murder, it was extremely hard for them to get the public to actually feel this way. Even before Luigi Mangione was charged with his killing, you saw the public turn him into a folk hero of sorts. Literally Johnny Appleseed with a Glock. You had memes, think pieces, graffiti, fundraisers, any form of public support you can think of for his alleged assassin. One thing you hardly saw though...
On like a clothing brand that I like, which, I mean, I need to check to see if their practices are even ethical. That's a different thing too. It's a website called Cherry Kitten where they have like especially like pro kink clothes that I like. There are plenty of shirts with Luigi's face that's like, "But Daddy, I love him."
Any sort of sympathy for
thought
Brian
that was
Thompson.
amusing.
Mind you, these people celebrating aren't cold-blooded killers, but rather the real-world victims or family members of victims of the day-to-day choices of men like Brian Thompson. No one is required to show you sympathy or empathy after you routinely disregarded their lives and showed little to no compassion. While the Thompson family has remained private during this whole ordeal, the media made sure to remind you that he had one. You know,
and
think
an
of his family,
essay.
and that people should at
Thank
least
you
feel some
very
sympathy
much.
for them, if not for Brian. Okay, fair enough. But again, when was this ever reciprocated? While the Thompson family was going on vacations and living their lavish, opulent life, millions nationwide had to spend time with their family and loved ones on a hospital bed or a deathbed, watching them slowly
Doing
wither
it
away as
better.
those in power
I love
clink
to
their
see
champagne
that.
glasses. And mind you, it was Brian and the rest of the executives' choices that denied their coverage for the sake of capital and profit. What allowed him to spend
No ethical kinks under capitalism. Let your freak flag fly. Yeah. Yeah. It's like what like Audre Lorde would kind of talk about of like as long as we are all oppressed, like we have a very limited value of consent, of what it even means, and so it cheapens our sense of consent, and how like we can't engage in a full like truly free type of power exchange as long as we are being oppressed, because then we are recreating some of these oppressive systems. But also, while existing within these oppressive systems, it can be radical to be subverting them in ways where we are actually choosing what kinds of power exchange we are experiencing. So like holding these things true at the same time.
Time with his family is what killed your loved ones. The wealth that allows these folks to have these happy memories are funded by the exploitation of those underneath them. And then you have the audacity to demand sympathy from them? That decision is up to the victims and the victims alone. To put it plainly, you get the same amount of sympathy in death that you show to others in life. But you have to stop and think about why the media would have such an adverse reaction to the public celebrating this assassination. On the surface, it's obvious. I mean, no reputable mainstream news outlet is going to openly condone political violence. But let's be honest, if millions of ordinary people stop instinctively sympathizing with the executive class, then one of the most important pillars of their public legitimacy starts to crack. Remember, the focus of this video has been all about their mythology. It only works if the public continues to see these folks as admirable and respectable. What happened to Brian Thompson was their ugly reminder that the rest of the world doesn't love or worship them as much as they want, and it damn sure reminded them that they're not invincible. Let's go back to Stockton Rush. This was a dangerously irresponsible and reckless man whose ego was so inflated that he was willing to put others at risk just to prove he was a genius. He had little to no regard for human life when it challenged his ego, and look what the end result was. He got 5 people killed, including himself. As far as sympathy goes, I feel bad for the 18-year-old that was on board. As one, he's still a kid, but 2, even he saw through the hubris of this madman and was literally dragged along by his father. But aside from him, is it really that hard to understand why the general public doesn't have much sympathy for a bunch of dead elites? All this does is show how having wealth and power will always award you more sympathy than the ones who helped put you in that position. To close us out, I want to draw a parallel between the sinking of the Titanic and the rescue efforts of the submersible. When the Titanic went down back in 1912, you saw how rescue efforts were pretty much immediate. News spread globally within a matter of hours, and you saw ships literally reroute and redirect resources if necessary. It truly was an international effort to locate and rescue all these survivors, despite the technological limitations of that time period. But it's hard to ignore how the scale of that response matched the perceived value of the people involved.
Especially the people who were in the water.
And most socially prominent figures of that era. You go ahead and compare that to what happened with the Titan submersible, and it's like looking into a grim mirror. The minute that sub went missing, we saw a multinational effort involving the US Coast Guard, the Canadian military, you had private deep sea companies, as well as a whole bunch of advanced underwater robotics, and they all got deployed at a...
Yeah, but also we can't ignore the fact that with the Titanic, the people who actually had positions, like, were able to actually get into lifeboats first, they were in the upper classes, like, quite literally, they're like first class.
Massive taxpayer cost. With the amount of resources that got poured into this, you'd think the fucking president went missing. In both cases, we saw that whenever wealth and status are involved, sympathy travels differently. Our media landscape is structured to react faster and more intensely when power is at stake. Meanwhile, countless tragedies involving ordinary people are never met with that same coverage or attention. Around the same time the sub went missing and imploded, there were reports of migrant boats capsizing in the Mediterranean. Folks lost their lives in far greater numbers, but they never got the same amount of visibility from the media. But then you remember, what was the price tag on their lives? In the end, the only man who could have saved Stockton Rush was Stockton Rush himself. But what happened to him is just a symptom of a much larger issue that him and all his other rich buddies have in common. That wealth and ego make them feel invincible. And whenever they face real-world consequences, we're conditioned to feel bad for it. Now, whether or not you feel bad, that's up to you. But just know that sympathy is paid for with every decision we make during our lives here on Earth. And as far as whether or not you can pay that price tag, well, that's the real question.
I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be sort of the Captain Kirk. I didn't want to be the passenger in the back. And I realized that the ocean is the universe. That's where life is. Once the pressure vessel is, you're certain it's not going to collapse on everybody, everything else can fail. Your thrusters can go, your lights can go, you're still going to be safe. Anything when you're trying something outside the box, people inside the box think you're nuts. Same thing when Elon Musk was doing SpaceX. Inside the box, everything's scary. I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur said, you're remembered for the rules you break. And, you know, I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber and titanium, there's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did.
With logic and good engineering.
But I ain't mad at you for what you do. I ain't mad at you for nothing you do.
Yeah, a very rare example of someone making decisions for cutting corners actually feeling the personal effects of what that means. Okay, there are some of these that are very long. Let's see. Oh, I was saying that wrong. Weingarten Rights. I do want to continue talking about this. BRB. Yeah, do what you need to do. Now for resources, we all compete beyond the talk of war and peace and talk of porous border. There is corpses on the shore of Greece. They found a teddy next to where his body was, found the sea swallowed him, politics has swallowed him now, and those responsible. Ahmed's ghost will follow them now. To the family we can say is, we are sorry he drowned. Ugh. Damn. Really hard-hitting lyric about those migrant boats just mentioned. Jesus. Yeah. So true. Is that low-key again? The way you're able to, like, pull these lyrics so quickly as well. I'm very impressed. Okay. So this is a quick video. I have not seen this, so we'll see what this has in store for us. Loki again. Jeez. Yeah. Such a way with words. Like, that is a gift. Truly. I have seen this. This keeps popping up in my algorithm. Post-literate age. Why fewer Americans are reading for pleasure. Yeah, because of digital media, but also calling out that reading is has been imposed by colonizers as a form of oppression. So I have a freakish mind vault of lyrics and quotes. That is really cool. Yeah, you truly do, and need to keep using that shit. Okay, so let's see what this has in store for us. This is about knowing your rights, Weingarten Rights. This is about organizing. I guess I could have read this before. Oh, just a brief history of Weingarten Rights. Nice description. United Educators of San Francisco. It doesn't look like it's made by AI. It was made in 2019. That's what Genius is for. I mean, I am very impressed. Like, I thought I would be able to recognize lyrics enough. Maybe I'm old enough and I've had, like, enough time of, like, smoking weed, of, like, not, of not having as, like, quick of a memory, especially with, like, books. I would be able to be like, oh yeah, that's from this book, that's from that, and I think that's kind of, that's departed from me as well, but, you know, just picking and choosing where we're spreading our our mind power, I guess.
So today we're going to talk about knowing your rights, and specifically a well-known set of rights within labor union called Weingarten Rights. So let's talk about the history of Weingarten Rights. Weingarten family opened their first store in Houston in 1901 and began to create more stores primarily around the South. By this time, they had close to 100 stores when this case took place, and they were also known during the 60s because there were a lot of protests at some of the lunch counters that they had inside of supermarkets. But we really can't talk about Weingarten's without talking about the key person at the center of it, who was Laura Collins. She was a sales clerk at Weingarten supermarket. She was also a part of a union, Local 455, and she had worked there for almost 9 years. So Laura Collins purchased chicken from Weingarten, and she was accused of stealing because it was in a larger box. So loss prevention began to investigate it, and they did so without allowing her to have union representation, and there were many phases to it. At the end, they found out that they had made a mistake. They apologized to her and said, look, don't tell anyone.
They may say that if you have gum while studying, you'll remember what you studied when you have that gum. I would do that sometimes with studying for my tests. I think in that situation with weed, I've learned most of everything I know while high, but somehow I still retain that. Wow, that's amazing. Mine like a steel trap. Incredible. Yeah, I hope that's true, even for my sake.
But she actually told her union, and they took the case to the National Labor Relations Board, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And out of that, we have Weingarten Rights. So let's talk about what Weingarten Rights are. Weingarten Rights say that if an employee has a reasonable belief that discipline or other adverse consequences may result from what he or she says, the employee has the right to request union representation. And then the employer has 3 things that they can do. They can stop questioning and wait till a representative arrives. They can call it off, or they can tell the employee that it will call off the interview unless the employee voluntarily gives up their right, which is never suggested. So if you would like more information on Weingarten Rights, go to bit.ly/rights here and read the NLRB case, which is NLRB versus Weingarten.
Which I would like to do. I'd like to do that on stream. I realized really early on the medical benefits, so I've been smoking heavy for like 6 to 7 years. Yeah, there are a lot of medical benefits, especially for people experiencing chronic pain too. Might have fried something up there yet, but nothing I've ran into yet. It is interesting how like there are some things that like I don't remember until like that I did like while being high one time until like getting high another time and being like, oh, I forgot about that. It's because because I'm recreating some of the same circumstances. Okay. Shall we get into Othello before I head off for the night? We are on Act 5. So Act 5, Scene 1. In the previous act, in the previous scene, which was Scene 3 of Act 4, there was Amelia talking about how she's angry at Othello for treating Desdemona. And the way that he does, that Desdemona is like, yes, I went to bed like he told me to. She sang a song. And Amelia's like, we shouldn't trust men. We should treat them how they treat us. And yet Amelia does not really do a whole lot to resist her husband, but also she is in an abusive relationship, so not wanting to victim blame, but also talking about how they are oppressed under patriarchy, but not as oppressed as Bianca, another character who is a sex worker, and that Bianca is not as oppressed as some other people in this society. So, or experiences like the racializing that Othello does. So, like, it's all encountering marginalization and intersections thereof. So now for Act 5 in Scene 1, we see Iago entering and Roderigo. Iago. Here, stand behind this bulk, meaning shop stall. Straight will he come. Wear thy good rapier bare and put it home, meaning drive it into him. So, don't have your sword sheathed, just have it ready. Quick, fear nothing. I'll be at thy elbow. It makes us, or it mars us. Think on that, and fix most firm thy resolution. So that is a famous phrase. Maybe it's not as common as it used to be. It makes us or mars us. That's from Shakespeare. They say it suppresses dreaming. I'm happy as fuck that's not the case for me. I love a little free vacation at night. I know, that is like one of the many benefits. I have always had nightmares. Maybe that's telling too much, but when I've told doctors that, they're they get a concerned look on their face, and I'm like, okay, anyway. But yeah, that certainly helps with that. One of the many things that it can help with. Roderigo. Be near at hand, I may miscarry in it. Iago. Here at thy hand, be bold, and take thy stand. Roderigo, aside. I've no I have no great devotion to the deed, and yet he hath given me satisfying reasons. 'Tis but a man gone. Forth my sword, he dies. So they're gonna kill Cassio. They, meaning Roderigo, will. Iago, aside. I have rubbed this young quat almost to the sense. Young quat? Ew, that means a pimple? I didn't know that. Almost to the sense, meaning to the quick. And he grows angry. Now whether he kills Cassio or Cassio him, or each do kill the other, each way makes my gain. Live Roderigo. He calls me to a restitution large of gold and jewels that I bobbed from him, as gifts to Desdemona. Yes, now he's admitting that he stole these things from Roderigo. It must not be. If Cassio do remain, he hath a daily beauty in his life that makes me ugly. And besides, the Moor may unfold me to him, meaning reveal me to him. There stand I in much peril. No, he must die. But so, I hear him coming. Enter Cassio. Roderigo. I know his gait, 'tis he. Attacking Cassio. Villain, thou diest! Cassio. That thrust has been mine enemy indeed, but that my coat is better than thou knowest, meaning his armor. I will make proof of thine, meaning he's going to test him. He stabs Roderigo, who falls. Roderigo. Oh, I am slain! Iago wounds Cassio in the leg from behind. Exit Iago. So this is also showing that, like, Iago is a coward. He's not willing to fight Cassio himself, because Cassio is a good fighter, and that he is only going to attack him when his back is turned, which in this time, in, like, the colonizer perspective of, like, this is a way of, like, not having proper rules of engagement. Cassio falling. I am maimed forever. Help! Ho! Murder! Murder! Enter Othello above. Othello. The voice of Cassio. Iago keeps his word. Roderigo. Oh, villain that I am! Othello. It is even so. Cassio. Oh, help! Ho! Light, a surgeon! Othello. 'Tis he. O brave Iago, honest and just, thou hast such noble sense of thy friend's wrong, thou teachest me. Minion, your dear lies dead, and your Hi. Hi, Dinny. What do you need? Hi, welcome. She's very chatty. Hi, Pug. Come here. There she is. Hi. I used to get a lot of nightmares, but ever since the first shroom trip, maybe coincidental, my brain just kind of returns to a fever dream version of the city the trip was in. Interesting. Just on loop. Wow. I have not heard that before. I'm very intrigued by that. Maybe. Need to try some things. Try more things, I guess I should say. Hi, Buggy. Hi. How was your dinner? She's approving of the book, rubbing her face on it. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. Oh. Want me to hold you? Okay, maybe not. She can be indecisive sometimes about it. Minion, your dear lies dead, and your unblessed fate hies, meaning damnation hurries on. Strumpet I come, so that's what he is calling Desdemona. Forth of my heart those charms, thine eyes are blotted, thy bed less stained, shall with less blood be spotted. Exit. Enter Lodovico and Graciano. So this is a new person. Oh, great. I have to think of a new voice. Hi. Hi, little chirpy. Oh, Teeny! She stepped on these papers and slipped. You okay? Probably less the shrooms and more the escapism that holiday in particular provided. Oh, your subconscious is like, we need to go back there. What was that about? Investigate. Hi. No, not on the book. Okay. Enter Lodovico and Grassanio. Cassio. What, ho! No watch, no passage? Meaning no passerby. Murder! Murder! Graciano. Some mischance. The voice is very direful. Cassio. Oh, help! Lodovico. Hark! Roderigo. Oh, wretched villain! Lodovico. 2 or 3 groan. 'Tis heavy night, meaning dark night. These may be counterfeits. Let's think it unsafe to come into the cry without more help, meaning go near. Roderigo. Nobody come? Then shall I bleed to death. Enter Iago with a light. Lodovico. Hark. Graciano. Here's one comes in his shirt with light and weapons. Iago. Who's there? Whose noise is this that cries on murder? So him pretending like he wasn't there all along. Lodovico. We do not know. Iago. Do you not hear a cry? Cassio. Here! Here, for heaven's sake, help me! Iago. What's the matter? Graciano to Lodovico. This is Othello's ensign, as I take it. Lodovico. The same indeed, a very valiant fellow. Iago to Cassio. Where are you here that cry so grievously? Cassio. Iago, I am spoiled, undone by villains. Give me some help. Iago. Oh, me, Lieutenant, what villains have done this? Cassio. I think that one of them is hereabout, and cannot make away. Iago. Oh, treacherous villains! To Lodovico and Graciano. What are you there? Come in and give some help. Roderigo. Oh, help me there! Cassio. That's one of them. Iago, stabbing Roderigo. Jesus. Oh, murderous slave! Oh, villain! Roderigo. Oh, damned Iago! Oh, inhuman dog! Iago. Kill men in the dark. Where be these bloody thieves? How silent is this town? How? Oh, ho! Murder! Murder! To Lodovico and Graciano. What may you be? Are you of good or evil? Lodovico. As you shall prove us, praise us. Iago. Signor Lodovico? He, sir. I cry you mercy. Here's Cassio hurt by villains. Graciano. Cassio? Iago. How is it, brother? Cassio. My leg is cut in 2. Iago. Mary, heaven forbid. Light, gentlemen, I'll bind it with my shirt. Enter Bianca. What is the matter? Ho! Who is it that cried? Iago. Who is it that cried? Bianca. Oh, my dear Cassio, my sweet Cassio, oh, Cassio, Cassio! Iago. Oh, noble strumpet, Cassio, may you suspect who they should be that have thus mangled you? Cassio. No. Graciano. I am sorry to find you thus. I have been to seek you. Iago. Lend me a garter. So, oh, for a chair, meaning a litter. To bear him easily hence. Bianca. Alas, he faints. Oh, Cassio, Cassio, Cassio! Iago, gentlemen all, I do suspect this trash to be a party in this injury. Trash, so calling, Bianca, she's a sex worker, calling her trash. Patience a while, good Cassio. Come, lend me a light. Going to Roderigo. Know we this face or no? Alas, my friend, and my dear countryman. Roderigo? No. Yes, sure. Oh, heaven, Roderigo! So he's pretending like he's not evil in killing Roderigo. Graciano. What? A Venice? Graciano's just constantly surprised by what's going on, apparently. Iago. Even he, sir. Did you know him? Know him? Aye. Signor Graciano, I cry your gentle pardon. These bloody accidents must excuse my manners that so neglected you. Graciano. I am glad to see you. Iago. How do you, Cassio? Oh, a chair! A chair! Graciano. Roderigo. Tis he, said Iago. Enter attendants with a chair. Oh, that's well said, the chair. Some good man bear him carefully from hence. I'll fetch the general surgeon. To Bianca. For you, mistress, save you your labour. He that lies slain here, Cassio, is my friend. What malice was between you? Cassio. None in the world, nor do I know the man. Iago to Bianca. What look you pale? To attendants. Oh, bear him out the air. Footnote. Out of the open air, thought to be bad for wounds. To Lodovico and Graciano. Stay you, good gentlemen. Exit attendants with Cassio in the chair and with Roderigo's body. To Bianca, says Iago. Look you pale, mistress? To Lodovico and Graciano. Do you perceive the ghastness of her eye, meaning terror? To Bianca. Nay, an you stare, we shall hear more anon. To Lodovico and Graciano. Behold her well, I pray you look upon her. Do you see, gentlemen? Nay, guiltiness. We'll speak, though tongues were out of use. So now he's going to blame Bianca. And he also has said that, like, he has a thing for Bianca. So taking it out on her. The classic patriarchal issue of being attracted to someone and then wanting to take it out on them. I mean, this is also closeted behavior. Closeted evil queer behavior. When he does that to Cassio and Othello. Enter Emilia. Alas, what is the matter? What is the matter, husband? Iago. Cassio hath here been set on in the dark by Roderigo and fellows that are scaped. He's almost slain, and Roderigo dead. Alas, good gentleman! Alas, good Cassio! Iago. This is the fruits of whoring. Okay. Prithee, Emilia, go know of Cassio where he supped tonight. To Bianca. What, do you shake at that? Bianca. He supped at my house, but I therefore shake not. Iago. Oh, did he so? I charge you go with me. Emilia to Bianca. Oh, fie upon thee, strumpet. Okay, Emilia immediately believing Iago, even though he mistreats her, and is prejudiced towards sex workers. Bianca. I am no strumpet, but of life as honest. Teeny. She's on my laptop. No, she's on the keys. Little bug. You're very cute, but that's too much. I know that's a good spot. Okay. Bianca. I am no strumpet, but of life as honest as you that thus abuse me. Yeah, good for Bianca for standing up for herself. Emilia. As I? Oh, fie upon thee. She's like, don't you dare compare me to you. You're a sex worker. Iago. Kind gentlemen, let's go see poor Cassio dressed. To Bianca. Come, mistress, you must tell's another tale. Emilia, run you to the citadel, and tell my lord and lady what hath happed. Will you go on afore? Exit Emilia. Aside. This is the night that either makes me or fordoes me quite. For does, meaning undoes me. Undoes me, that's what it is. Or undoes me quite. Okay. That is the end of scene 1 of Act 5. We'll get into Act 5, scene 2 tomorrow. And into Culture Corner, I do want to continue talking about Weingarten Rights so that we can get more of the details. And then go over Culture Corner. Did the little guy dirty with the 0.5 lens. Oh, is that your cat? Especially that angle. Such pretty eyes, though. I love black cats. Black cats and gray cats. All cats. Hi, Beanie. Yeah. That's how I talk. Oh, bug. Okay. That'll be it for me tonight. Thank you all for being here. It was lovely chatting with you. We will reconvene tomorrow, but he's pretty regal when you don't sabotage his grace as I did. Most cats are regal, I think. They have a certain sense of elegance, grace to them, and then sometimes they do very derpy things, which is also fun. We love the juxtaposition there. All right. Thank you for being here. It was lovely chatting with you all. I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye.